up over the next 3 hours? Well, we looked everywhere, turned over every rock and went up every alley, but in the end, none of the other taxation options on the table could feasibly raise the revenue required to stave off devastating budget cuts and fund increased spending on health, education, transport and security. That about sums up the message from the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in justifying government's decision to increase value-added tax by a percentage point this year and another percentage point next year, taking the VAT rate to 16%. Godongwana says increasing corporate or personal income tax rates was explored, but would have generated less revenue while potentially harming investment, job creation and economic growth. The minister saying that raising VAT by that half a percentage point this year and another half a percentage point next year will help him realize something in the region of 28 billion rand this year and a further 14.5 billion rand next year. But as you can imagine, political and civil society reaction has been swift. So here's what we're going to do. In the second hour, I'll be in conversation with John Steenhuisen, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, a key component of the governing coalition at a national level, but they're saying that they will not be supporting this budget when it's debated and voted upon in Parliament. We'll then give you some analysis with Lumkile Mondi, Dr. Lumkile Mondi, who will come through and help us make sense of all of the figures. But throughout the show, there's various components of analysis, including a conversation with the organization Section 27 about the amounts of money that will be dedicated to education. We are told that part of the money will go towards funding and keeping some 11,000 teachers in classrooms. So that's a good thing. That's what we've all been talking about. But a bit later on, we'll be talking to SANRAL, the South African National Roads Agency Limited, about that allocation that's going towards them as well. I'm keen to hear your thoughts. What jumped out for me, and I must be very honest, I'm grappling with it. I don't want to take a firm position on it yet. But the 5 billion rand towards the SANDF's deployment in the DRC. If you know me, you'll know that I'm all for South Africa being involved on the continent more and more. We are part of the continent. There's no doubt about that. And if we can take a leadership role, we should. And I'm all for increased investment in our defense force because I've observed for quite a period of time just the decline in terms of the resources going towards defense. But I don't know where I stand about the deployment in the DRC currently, given the realities that even when President Ramaphosa was taking questions in Parliament, I don't know whether there's still a mission to speak of in the DRC. With the mission was about keeping away what they were calling negative elements by that, read M23 and that alliance. Well, that horse has bolted. Goma was overrun. Bukavu was overrun and a whole host of other towns. And in fact, according to President Ramaphosa a few days ago, answering questions in Parliament, basically our troops are now confined to the airport in Goma and at Sake, and they're having to negotiate and talk to the M23. The other countries that are involved are talking about withdrawing their troops. So I don't know what are we funding with this 5 billion rand. I don't know. That's just me. I've not formed a view that says I oppose it. I just question it. I'm not so certain. I would like someone to explain to me what mission are we funding to the tune of 5 billion rand. I don't get that. Anyway, I'll welcome your views on the budget. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The other story we're going to highlight for you, well, are they coming back? Could the chickens be coming home to roost for the Bushiris? The Lilongwe Chief Resident Magistrate Court has ruled that South Africa has met the legal requirements to extradite Shepherd and Mary Bushiri, clearing the way possibly for their possible return to face fraud, money laundering, and other additional criminal charges. The couple, of course, you'll remember, fled South Africa in 2020 and are accused of defrauding victims something in the region of 102 million rand and face other charges including rape and bail violations. So in the second hour of the show, I'll be in conversation at about 7:20 with the Minister of Justice, Mamoloko Gubai, and you'll know that the Department of Justice takes center stage once these issues reach that international cooperation level where an extradition is being sought. The government in South Africa, for example, vowing that they will oppose any appeals by the Bushiris if they do decide to go that way. But in this hour, one of the stories we'll tell you has to do with this Tesla, the company owned by Elon Musk that manufactures EVs, electronic vehicles. Well, it's facing a sharp decline in global sales, with consumers believed to be pushing back against Musk's political ties to the U.S. administration of Donald Trump. The company's stock fell some 15% by the end of trading on Monday, which is its worst drop in 5 years, following Trump's warning of a possible recession on Sunday. Trump has acknowledged Tesla's struggles in a Truth Social post, saying that, but he blames it on those he calls radical left lunatics, quote unquote. So we'll tell you about what is happening, particularly in Europe, where that apparent boycott of Tesla seems to be particularly pronounced. I mean, sales there declining 76% in February in Germany, 55% in Italy, 48% in Norway and Denmark, and so on and so on. So my guest over the next few minutes will be Professor Adrian Saville, who will come through and just help us unpack all of that. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded once again for this Thursday morning. And Musa with your news updates every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. And of course, as always, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. As I said, your calls to 086 000 2032, your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X, and we are also SAFM Radio on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and live on our YouTube channel. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
My name is Bladen Zemande, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. No nation can hope to achieve its development goals without meaningful investment in science, technology and innovation. To enable this, we need a responsive and transformed national system of innovation. From the 13th to the 14th of March 2025, the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation will host the inaugural National System of Innovation Summit. The summit seeks to accelerate the transformation of our national system of innovation with the view of making it more responsive to our national priorities and developmental goals. The Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, making it possible.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Hey, Anne, good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas.
For a change, I don't need to have been paying attention to know what's leading in the diary this morning. Lots of reaction to the budget.
Definitely. Yeah. But now that the budget has been tabled, sparking mixed reactions and parties vowing to challenge it in Parliament, concerns also among economists who warn that it could further strain already struggling households, and the budget allocating substantial funding to infrastructure projects over the next 3 years, but leaving state-owned enterprises, without any additional support. And today, the Minister in the Presidency, Kumbutso Ntshabeni, will be briefing the media on the outcomes of the cabinet meeting that was held yesterday. We also have a briefing by the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula on the 2025 national budget. The South African government has welcomed a Malawi court ruling ordering the extradition of the self-proclaimed prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife, and the couple facing multiple criminal charges in South Africa, including rape and financial crimes, after fleeing the country in 2020. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be co-chairing the 8th South African European Union Summit that's taking place in Cape Town. It is alongside the EU leaders Antonio Costa and Ursula von der Leyen, and this summit is a crucial part of the South Africa-EU strategic partnership that's focusing on key areas such as trade, investment, energy transition, as well as innovation. And the Electoral Commission saying it has set out a 6-month period for further inputs and consultations. That's regarding the discussion documents on e-voting, and the public also being urged to make their contributions on the IEC website. And just lastly, the South Africa Weather Service issuing a level 6 warning, and that's for widespread showers and disruptive rains across KwaZulu-Natal from today. So some of the stories that we will be focusing on.
All right, and thank you for that. We'll be hearing from Anne every half hour here on the Morning Brief with your news updates.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, waza nawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's give you a weather for this Thursday morning. There are lots of warnings, in fact, 6 of them. And as I always do, when we have warnings, we prioritize those and then gives you your highs and lows for the major centers. So let's start. The first one, as N was alluding in the bulletin, pay particular attention to this one. It's an orange level 6 warning coming through from the South African Weather Service. Is for disruptive rain with heavy downpours leading to flooding of roads and settlements, damage to infrastructure and mudslides over the southeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. The second, yellow level 4 warning, severe thunderstorms with heavy downpours resulting in localized flooding of susceptible roads and settlements, strong damaging winds, excessive lightning and small hail that is possible over most parts of KwaZulu-Natal except in the southeast and extreme northeast. A yellow level 2 warning says disruptive rain with heavy downpours leading to localized flooding of roads and settlements, damage to infrastructure and mudslides over the southeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Then you have a yellow level 2 warning for severe thunderstorms with heavy downpours resulting in localized flooding of susceptible roads and settlements, strong and damaging winds, excessive lightning and small hail that is possible over the southeastern parts of the Northern Cape, southern parts of the Free State, as well as along the Lesotho borders, eastern parts of the Northwest, Gauteng, southern Limpopo, and most parts of Mpumalanga except in the Lowveld. Then there's a yellow level 4 warning for wind and waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea. That is expected between Saldanha Bay and Plettenberg Bay, and lastly, a yellow level 2 warning for wind and waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea, and those conditions expected between Plettenberg Bay and Mazipha Bay. So let's give you your highs and lows for the main cities. Pretoria 17 to 25, Johannesburg 15 to 22, Mbombela 17 to 28, Polokwane 16 to 26, Mahikeng 16 to 28, Bloemfontein 16 to 30, Kimberley 18 to 30, Uppington 22 to 35, Cape Town 21 to 31, George 16 to 22, Gqeberha 18 to 24, East London 20 to 26, Durban 20 to 28, Richards Bay 20 to 31, and finally Pietermaritzburg 16 to 27.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
23 minutes after 6 on this Thursday, Tesla is facing a sharp decline in global sales, with consumers believed to be pushing back against CEO Elon Musk's political ties to U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. The company's stock plunged 15% by the end of trading on Monday, 15. It's the worst drop in 5 years, following Trump's warning of a possible recession on Sunday. Trump has acknowledged Tesla's struggles in a Truth Social post, blaming the decline on those he calls, quote-unquote, radical left lunatics. But the situation seems to be particularly pronounced in Europe, where sales have plummeted with declines of 76% in Germany, 55% in Italy, 48% in Norway and Denmark, 45% in France, and 42% in Sweden, and so on and so on. I'm joined now by Professor Adrian Saville, who is Professor of Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science, as well as the founding director of the Center for African Management and Markets. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. So at first, when I heard about the Tesla sales plummeting, I initially wrote it off as, some kind of a propaganda or, an information campaign by Trump administration critics. But it's becoming harder and harder to ignore, isn't it? Particularly in Europe.
I would agree with you. Harder and harder, impossible to ignore. It now seems to be more a date with destiny rather than some type of temporary interruption. And there's a couple of things going on. I think one of the most obvious, as you're pointing out, is the political involvement. And there's at least two aspects here to talk about. The one is the goings on in the United States, where, as you listening to your intro, I'm chuckling because I was watching last night on social media Donald Trump's delight as he bought a Tesla and displayed this for the world to see in front of the White House.
I saw that.
If ever you get a political endorsement, I'm not sure you'd want it, but in this way. But there you have it. Perhaps the clearest evidence of involvement from a politician. But I think there's an even greater misstep, as you're pointing out in Europe, where in Germany Musk has endorsed the far right, the Alternative for Deutschland party, and that has seen consumers just backlash against that endorsement. And there's been a huge sales decline. In Germany, the registration fell 76% in February.
Sure. So in a way, Prof, if I understand you correctly, yes, there's an issue about perhaps disapproving of Elon Musk and his involvement with the Trump administration. But as far as Europe is concerned, there are factors that are particular to Europe, partly Elon Musk's political activities in Europe, particularly as they relate to the far right on that continent.
And there's images going around of his political endorsement, making it clear about the social protest. I'd put a huge however here, that this is really just one aspect of what's going on with Tesla. I think that there are other issues, because Germany is a market. It's not Tesla's entire market, or Germany is a country. It's not the whole of Europe. So there's much more going on than just the political shenanigans. And here I think, we should look to the rest of the world or other markets to get some clues. And the Chinese manufacturer BYD, Build Your Dream in particular, has been the big market share eater.
Yeah.
They are a fierce rival competitor, and as is oftentimes the case when challenges or rivals come from emerging markets, they're initially perceived to be inferior products, cheap mimickers, cheap knockoffs. And that might be the perception initially, but in the fullness of time, not only are you able to, and to experience, it becomes evident that businesses like China's BYD, or what I'm speaking to you right now, Samsung, is world-class technology, and that is certainly the case with BYD. The vehicles are world-class and available at price points below Tesla. So now Tesla is having to respond to the likes of BYD with one of the poorest forms of competition. They're having to respond with price competition, cutting prices. And so it's not just that sales of new Teslas has fallen, it's that in the second-hand market, the response has been plummeting prices as people can't get rid of their second-hand Teslas because other people can get hold of BYDs at even lower prices. And so you get this death spiral of prices. So that's going on also, and we need to keep a very close eye on that.
And the situation won't be helped, will it, Prof, by the tariff war that is not only raging with the US's immediate neighbors, Mexico and Canada, but also with Europe as well?
Certainly, and you might now have a broader protest to U.S. manufactured goods, where here is just a silent protest. We won't buy U.S. Because that's the badge or the flag on the product, and therefore we'd rather buy something else. The German manufacturers might be delighted by this, a bit of relief in what has turned into a fierce vehicle market for European manufacturers. And then Tesla's wrestling with a couple of other things. They've got a very old vehicle lineup, and then in their Cybertruck, lots of snags in that product launch.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Adrian Saville, who is Professor of Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. And that brings us to 6:30. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Finance Minister Inogo Dongwana says the decision to increase value-added tax from 15% to 16% over the next 2 years will have greater impact on higher-income households as they generally consume more. The DA has called for a change in leadership at the Gauteng Health Department after the Office of Health Standards Compliance and the Health Ombudsman released a report into claims of neglect at Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made a surprise visit to the Kursk region, where his forces are trying to end a Ukrainian incursion. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We've been warning about this one today. It's a truck crash on Joburg's N1 South. So it's going from Deepcliff against the sort of peak traffic. It's going south out of Deepcliff down through towards Devlin, but it's right up against the right barrier. So highly visible to the big volume these days that is on the N1 North. So if you're driving into Joburg from Crossmere, you're coming from Protea Glen, from Eldos or from Lenasia, and you come along that sort of N12 or N1 North, you get through the what they call Dead Men's Bend, and you get up to Deepcliff down towards the at Uncle Charlie's. It's really heavy. You might want to do a reroute if you're sort of Protea Glen, Lenasia side, either out through Soweto or out through Aikenoff to beat a very heavily backed up N1 highway. Probably will stay busy for some time today. Main and Sloane, those traffic lights still out, so Lone Hill through to Bryanston, another jam-packed peak hour run through there. The Mopani Highway to Pretoria, a little bit slow at XX, a bigger queue down to Esky and Pathlelly this morning. The first of today's stationary trucks with us between Cliffdale and Hammersdale. That's where they tend to break down these days. One lane open because, of course, it's a construction zone and traffic starting to backlog. If you're leaving Durban on your way to Pietermaritzburg, you'll be joining a queue there. Cape Town, Baden-Powell, Sandy again. Probably a little bit worse than yesterday at Monwabisi, so take it easy getting through there. And the N1 into Cape Town, fairly solidly backed up already from the R300 through to Sable Road at Century City. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Sure, Sai, talk to me about this situation now at FNB Stadium. A stalemate between Amakhosi and Cape Town City, but I think it's more worrying for the Amakhosi, right?
I think so too.
The mighty Amakhosi.
The mighty.
I'm not mocking them. Don't pull that face.
There is not mocking them. But I mean, they've got a goal drought. And I think it's just making Cape Town's water crisis look like a small issue, because if they don't score soon, I don't know what we're going to have to rename FNB Stadium to No Goals Arena for Kaizer Chiefs. But anyway, goalless was the score last night between Chiefs and Cape Town City. And Amakhosi, they've just won once in their last 4 league outings. They remain in 8th place on the log. As for the Citizens, they've now gone 9 matches without a win across all competitions. They are in 10th place on the log, 6 points behind Chiefs, having played 1 extra game. Here's their coach, Mohsin Ettigrel.
Obviously the quality is there because we needed to look after our pockets, and they have a pattern that I call that the press traps. There are moments that we will jump out of defensive structure and try to pressurize. That moment they use the pockets very, very well, extremely well, and you could see in the half space, especially of Sireno's side, you could see that where the danger started. But in the end, it is a lot of activity, it's a lot of action, but the chances was on our side, if I'm not mistaken.
In the meantime, Golden Arrows snapped their winless streak. They grabbed a 1-0 away win against Polokwane City at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium, and that was thanks to a goal by veteran Lionel Mtizwa. Sekhukhune United bagged a 2-1 win against Marumo Gallants. Kickoff was delayed for about 45 minutes as a result of heavy rain at the Dr. Molimela Stadium. Elsewhere, Arsenal set up a Champions League quarter-final showdown with either Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid as a 2-2 draw with PSV Eindhoven at the Emirates Stadium sealed a 9-3 aggregate. Aston Villa through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Marco Asensio inspired to beat 10-man club Bruges 3-0 to secure a 6-1 aggregate win. And golf, Ulrich Vandenberg's experience came to the fore as he charged to an untainted 5-under par 67 in the opening round of the Big Easy Tour final event at the Els Club Copperleaf in Centurion, cementing a 2-stroke lead over Graham van der Merwe. And athletics, Marianne Fourie cracked the fastest season opener of her career, winning the 100-meter hurdles in a confidence-boosting 12.77 seconds at the first Grand Prix meet at the Pildit Stadium in Pretoria last night. Prudence Segodiso is also heading to China. She was happy with her performance in the 800 meters, winning in 1 minute 59.01 seconds ahead of her Botswana training partner Oratile Noe, and Shanae Swart was third. In the meantime, Leandre Holzhausen set her 4th South African record in the women's hammer throw, hitting 67.95 meters, and Zane Heldenhuis, Miranda Kutsia, Shirley Nekubue and Marlief Viljoen powered to the women's 4x400 meter team in a national record of 3 minutes 28.30 seconds. They easily beat Zimbabwe by more than 45 seconds in the process. And in one of the surprises of the night, 18-year-old Karabo Letabile won the men's 100 meters, downing veteran Emile Erasmus and Kenya's African record holder Ferdinand Omanyala. And in the men's short put, former under-20 champion Kyle Blichnot finished second behind Aiden Smith, who won a heave of 20.73 meters, and Jovan van Vuren won the men's long jump in 7.67 meters. Now, the second Grand Prix meet is scheduled for the University of Johannesburg Stadium, and that's next Wednesday. That's a sport wrap for you here on the Morning Brief. Our next sport update, top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Hey, Ndaulen, good morning to you. So for our first update of the morning, let's start in the United States. There's been this warning that says this trade war, tariff war on multiple fronts will hurt the economy. But it's not yet hurting, at least not by this measure, that is inflation.
That's right, Silas, and morning. So inflation cooling last month, edging closer to the Fed's 2% target. It came in at 2.8% from 3% in January. Now, this print gives the central bank room to keep interest rates unchanged next week as it monitors the economic impact of the ongoing trade war. Although the latest CPI report offers some relief, economists warn that the respite may be temporary as the data doesn't capture the full effect of the tariffs imposed by President Trump's administration, which has driven up consumers' inflation expectations and prompted economists to revise their forecast for price increases. Now, some of the contributors to the print include elevated housing prices. Airline fares, however, dropped 4% last month, signaling weaker demand as companies and consumers reduce spending. Now, the Fed is meeting next week, and as mentioned, expected to keep rates unchanged, but financial markets anticipate a rate cut in June due to the deteriorating economic outlook and potential impact of those tariffs coming through.
So in company news, tell me about Intel appointing a new CEO.
Yes. Now, we know Intel has been going through some trouble, and it seems like they're trying to get everything back into shape. They've announced the appointment of Lip Bu Tan, who's going to be the new CEO. Tan, formerly CEO of Cadence Design Systems, will replace interim co-CEOs David and MJ Holthouse. The appointment comes as Intel looks to recover from a downbeat 4-year period under former CEO Pat Gelsinger. Markets seem to welcome the news, with some traders saying Tan's experience in the semiconductor industry and his previous role as an Intel board member make him a strong candidate to lead the company's turnaround. Now, Tan's priorities will include addressing Intel's declining sales, inability to crack the AI market, and investor pressure to cut costs and spin off businesses. The new CEO will step into the position next week, and he becomes the 4th permanent CEO at Intel in 7 years. Intel's former CEO Pat Gelsinger had a bold plan to transform the company's business, but ultimately failed to deliver. So all eyes are on Tan as he attempts to make the big turnaround.
Sure. 4 CEOs in 7 years, they'll be hoping for some stability, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Lastly, Ndauling, please give us our first recap of market activity for this morning.
So starting with local markets, the JSE mixed as traders digested the national budget. Reaction has been conflicting, with some welcoming the budget while others say it's not a growth action plan. With that, we saw the all-share shed 0.27% at the close, fueled by a 2.5% decline in the Resources 10 complex. The rand in the meantime remaining stable. At some point after the budget was tabled yesterday, it hit around 18.42 to the dollar, but it's gathered some strength this morning, sitting at 18.33 to the dollar. Over in the U.S., markets recovering following cooling consumer inflation numbers. Stocks on that front trading mostly in the green overnight, with the Nasdaq up 1.2%. Lastly, in Asia, trade choppy as investors continue to assess the U.S. inflation print and keep an eye out for additional tariff moves.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lichela. Look out for more of her insights in her second report, and that will be coming up just after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group.
For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
First touch ladies have a tough assignment to demonstrate the importance of a good first touch. Meanwhile, TS Galaxy Queens refuse to settle for anything less than 3 points. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the thrilling battle between First Touch ladies and TS Galaxy Queens on Saturday, 15 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
17 minutes to 7. Let's turn our attention to this story now. A joint effort between KwaZulu-Natal's business community and the South African Police Service is delivering significant results, we are told, in the fight against the province's notorious construction mafia syndicates. Through strategic interventions and close collaboration, authorities, we are told, have successfully reduced attacks on construction sites, boosting security and investor confidence. And according to those reports, once responsible for up to 60 attacks per month, these criminal networks have seen their impact plummet to just 6 on average, 6 incidents per month last year. So let's unpack it all. I'm joined by Andre Kipiela, who is coordinator of the KwaZulu-Natal Growth Coalition. So I keep saying we are told, because I want to hear it from you, on the ground, affected and involved in these initiatives. Has the situation improved in the way that is being reported?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners. Indeed. Ever since the arrival of Commissioner Mkwanazi, things started to improve. The relationship between business and SEPS before his arrival was, to call it, at best was cordial, at worst was non-existent. Not because we didn't try. There was just no response at that time. With the July 21 attacks, the insurrection and so on, that came to obviously confrontation between business and other communities and so on, and SEPS and governments, and things started to happen. Indeed, 6-8 years ago, we used to have a lot of reports and incidents, and obviously people got hurt and so on sites, not just private sector projects, but also government projects and so on. And then we started to engage, as I said, Commissioner, and also Metro Police. We must not forget the role they played and they keep playing, in terms of combating crime, not only construction mafias, but also obviously the attempts of extortion and other forms of crime.
So what's the net effect in terms of the number of disruptions to projects that have been reported? I remember a time where even government would say that we have this particular massive infrastructure project, but it keeps getting delayed because of these construction mafias coming in and saying that they want a cut of the project or demanding so-called protection fees. What's been the effect on disruptions?
Well, the disruptions, as you've mentioned in your introductory remarks, from about 60 a month in those years, as I've mentioned, not to 6 a month last year, to 6 altogether in the province, or in particular in eThekwini, in a year. So obviously, we've managed collectively to push those criminals out and they started to appear en masse in other provinces. And obviously, to this day, because of that collaboration, these days, even before the project is launched, we circulate the leadership of SAPS and Metro with the addresses, the project owners, and so on, and they start patrolling before the construction company moves on site. And obviously that helps a great deal, because obviously the attempts have just about disappeared.
Yeah, but of course you give much of the credit to the collaboration and working relationship with the Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and I'm sure you will have seen some of the recent criticism and allegations being leveled against him of interference with certain arrests, allegations that he obviously denies. What's your position about that, about the kind of pressure that he's coming under?
First of all, those accusations, we collectively believe they are totally untrue. And we've had an engagement the other day, there was about 60, 70 top business people, and the commissioner came with his top personnel and so on. And he also, brought this to our attention in private meeting. And one by one, we've all agreed that this is basically a campaign to discredit him. Whenever there is a success story and criminals are affected, they also have huge resources, unfortunately, and they use companies, even PR companies and so on, to discredit those that are trying to uphold the law and obviously make South Africa safe again. So we have no doubt whatsoever that they're trying to set him up.
All right. Lastly then, according to what you are saying and your own lived experience as business in KwaZulu-Natal, we've made a start in rolling back these construction mafias and their disruptive effect on projects. How do we sustain it going forward?
Well, through ongoing cooperation, and also before the elections, the president came at our invitation. At that time, we had a problem with the leadership of eThekwini, municipality, and we sat down as business. The president brought 5 ministers, and he agreed to form the eThekwini presidential task team. And one of the work streams in that is obviously the security of doing business in KZN, not just eThekwini. And because of the success of that, we're launching similar arrangements now in Richards Bay tomorrow. And then we'll be rolling it out in Pietermaritzburg, Ladysmith, and other smaller towns. So that structure is going to be there. We're also raising money as business to support SAPS and Metropolis. Sure. So including raising money for orphans through the trust that the commissioner established, and for children of the orphans of, the heroes that have fallen on the line of duty.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Andre Kepiela, who is coordinator of KZN Growth Coalition. A bit of good news coming out from that province, at least in this one aspect of the fight against crime.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic. Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey neighbor, what happened to you last night? We were vibing, watching the game, and then our team scored, and the next thing you were gone.
Askies, I missed the goal. Just before our team scored, Eskom came and then our electricity was disconnected.
Yo, so much drama. What happened?
We got a fine for buying electricity tokens from an illegal vendor.
And then your fancy orange jumpsuit?
Oh, just in case I get arrested for not paying the fine, Phela.
Ungathatha amachance. Buy your electricity legally. Stop buying electricity from illegal vendors and tampering with electricity meters.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Wazanawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dress to commemorate Human Rights Day, and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, the rain overnight last night has left some flooding around Century, and those low bridge areas are closed off. So John Foster Rabi and that sort of area all shut. So you'll be looping around that in some congested sort of alternative route action this morning from one side of Centurion to the other. The N1 North in Joburg, a broken down vehicle before William Mandela, quite heavy coming out from Randburg. Really heavy on Malabongwe Drive as well, from north riding through all those faulty traffic lights, down trying to get into the highway, and then more faulty traffic lights the other side at Stratham Park. Lights are still off Main and Sloane as well. It's been a really bad week for motorists in from Lone Hill, and again this morning you're backlogging really heavy on that section of Main Road over the M1 highway and down into that faulty junction at Bryanston side. Now the N1 South truck crash at Devlin that we've been talking about, how it'll have an impact on the northbound side. That's exactly what we're seeing this morning. It's all mainly just due to the onlooking factor, big volume and onlooking. So if you're coming in from Crossmere, there's a big queue on the N1 all the way past that scene to Deepcliff. If you're coming in from Lenasia, Protea Glen, you might want to think about a reroute through Aikenoff and Kibla Park from the Lenasia side, or reroute through Soweto from Protea Glen, and avoid getting caught up in that N1 North. Stationary truck between Cliffdale and Hammersdale, so quite a big queue building up from Key Ridge. If you're Peter Maritzburg bound, everybody squeezing into one lane. You know the deal there. It gets very heavy very quickly, particularly at peak times, or any time really. Cape Town, N1 into town, Belleville through to Kubo, get a change, looks slow. Marine Drive's got a lot of traffic from Tableview all the way through to Woodbridge Island this morning, and the N7 is on a heavy jam from Goodwood up towards the N1 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let's take a call from Lala in Polokwane. Good morning to you, Lala. Is it Lala or Leila?
Lala.
Lala, talk to me about tax hikes this morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thulasizwe, as early as 2012, when the issue of NHI was introduced to us, it was well known that the government will not be able to implement it without increasing the taxes. So now I understand the DA, when they are saying they are rejecting the NHI, at the same time they are rejecting the increase of VAT. But I don't understand all other parties that are making a thumbs up for the NHI, but thumbs down for the increase of tax. Where is the government going to get the money?
I see.
To implement the NHI?
So they can't have their cake and eat it. You want the NHI and other programs. You must be willing to fund it and accept that it will come with pain.
That's true.
Okay. Interesting perspective. Thank you for that. That's Lala in Polokwane there. I will take a few more of your calls a bit later on the show.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So let's stick with that theme of the budget. Funding our education system and curbing any further devastating budget cuts. That has been part of the justification advanced by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana for the 0.5 percentage point increase in VAT this year and another one of the same magnitude next year, which will collectively take the VAT rate to 16% by next year. Part of that money, some 19.1 billion rand, is set to be channeled over the medium term to keeping approximately 11,000 teachers in the classroom. So the expected injection of expenditure in education also comes amid major challenges in the sector, but also a glimmer of optimism following the recent report that the Sanitation Appropriate for Education SAFE project has already eradicated some 93% of pit latrines in schools. Let's speak now to Matsiriso Linkwasa, who is a budget analyst at Section 27. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So I imagine that you welcome the fact that there appears to be a pulling back from the path of cutting budgets, particularly as far as education is concerned, and in fact going the opposite direction, that injecting fresh money into education.
Absolutely, and good morning to Thulasizwe and your listeners. Thanks for the platform. So absolutely, we are seeing it as a budget that gives with one hand and takes with the other. So civil society, especially human rights organizations that have been working in education space, have noticed, have heard the cries of people who use public services and public education systems complaining that their children are subject to classrooms that are increasingly overcrowded, classrooms that are dilapidated and falling apart, quite frankly, and also classrooms, they're risking their lives using dangerous pit latrines in accessing education, and of course school. Getting to school, walking many long distances because there are budget cuts towards scholar transport, for example. And so seeing this budget, which actually allocates an increase to education areas, that creates an injection to education budgets, is the highest that we've seen over the past decade, and definitely since COVID, shows an intention to equip schools with the necessary resources to overcome some of the challenges that we face in our education system in the country. Of course, we are saying that the budget also does take away, because these increases are unfortunately proposed to be funded by a VAT increase, which also is considered a tax on the poor, which means that there's less money in the hands of the people in the country month to month in this cost of living crisis.
So in a way, inokotongwana giveth, inokotongwana taketh away at the same time. Talk to me about this other aspect now, the report that recently came out about the impact of the program known as Sanitation Appropriate for Education, that is SAFE. We are told now that it has reached some 93% of all pit latrines being eradicated. Are you happy with the progress? This is an area on which you campaign quite vigorously as Section 27.
Yes, absolutely. So Section 27 has long advocated for eradicating unsafe pit latrines across the country because we've seen how fatal they can be, and it's really just unfortunate cases that we've seen. And one thing that we will say that the outcome of this shouldn't be politicized, but also recognize what happens when people in this country and different stakeholders come together to advance a particular to advance social justice. So we saw, civil society organizations like Section 27 take the Limpopo High Court, take the the Provincial Department of Education in Limpopo to court, compelling them to eradicate those pit latrines. And yes, we were successful in it, but there were complaints of budget cuts. So they're saying, yes, we can eradicate, or we would love to eradicate pit latrines, but we just don't have the money. But the court order changed the political will and compelled National Treasury to allocate funding towards the SAFE project. And so on the one hand, yes, we're happy that there is political will to eradicate pit latrines, because this is really what we've been calling for over the past decade and more. But then at the same time also recognize that this must be just the beginning, that we need to scale those wins across. So currently it's schools that are impacted are schools that only have dangerous pit latrines, but we're looking to eradicate all pit latrines across the country and have better sanitation alternatives for young people in this country.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Matsiriso Linkwasa, who is a budget analyst at Section 27. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news updates.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Godongwana justifies the VAT increase and DA calls for leadership change at Gauteng Health. Good morning. Finance Minister Ino Godongwana says the decision to increase value-added tax from 15% to 16% over the next 2 years will have a greater impact on higher-income households as they generally consume more. It says South Africa's VAT rate is still relatively lower compared to its peers like Nigeria, Australia and Botswana, among others. He says National Treasury noted that increasing personal income tax and corporate income tax would negatively affect employment, savings, investment and economic growth.
Taking on additional debt to meet the spending pressures was also not feasible. The amount is simply too large. The cost of borrowing would be unaffordable. Our sub-investment credit rating would also make this level of borrowing costlier and put us at a risk of even further downgrowth. Madam Speaker, VAT is a tax that affects everyone. By opting for a marginal increase to VAT, its divisional effect and impact were costly considered.
Meanwhile, the Thulasizwe party says the increase in VAT is going to affect black people. MK parliamentary leader Dr. John Hlope.
In our considered view as the MK party, the minister had a number of options to explore, but the option that the minister chose, in our view, is a wrong one. Increasing VAT by any percentage is disastrous. To increase it by 0.5% this year and next year as well, the people who are going to suffer most are black people.
The DA has called for a change in leadership by the Gauteng Health Department after the Office of Health Standards Compliance and the Health Ombudsman released a report into claims of neglected Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. The investigation was launched after broadcaster Tom London shared videos on social media in September last year. In the videos, he detailed the appalling treatment he received from hospital staff and exposed the hospital's deteriorating infrastructure. The report exonerated the hospital of maltreatment but found a lack of security, decaying infrastructure, staff shortages and poor governance. DA Shadow MEC for Health in Gauteng, Jack Bloom.
I think very important is the recommendations they've made, because we've had other investigations that have made recommendations and they haven't been carried out, and I certainly hope they use whatever enforcement measures they can to ensure that this time the recommendations are implemented in full. But there's a broader problem. It's the Gauteng Health Department. Virtually every hospital run by the Gauteng Health Department has similar problems to that at Helen Joseph Hospital, and I don't think we're going to fix the particular problems at Helen Joseph Hospital and the other hospitals until we change the top leadership at the Gauteng Health Department.
Technology companies who attended the electronic voting conference in Cape Town says there's a need for digital transformation to enable an electoral voting process to take place. They made presentations on the features and capabilities of the e-voting technology solutions and products. The three-day conference, which ended yesterday, brought together South Africans from all sectors of society, including political leaders, decision-makers, business, civil society, and the public, to discuss and explore the feasibility of e-voting in the country. Willem van Skalkwyk is a technical solution consultant.
A lot of focus on voter verification, voter registration, so enabling the manual process to a digital process. We have recently formed a partnership with an international company that does develop electronic voting machines, and we have been partnering with them now to provide that solution to the market that we are targeting. Specifically the African market, we will be looking at the South African market to explore the possibilities to implement our solution.
The Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial in the in the High Court sitting at Saldanha on the Cape West Coast continues today. This week, the court heard the testimony of evangelist and part-time handyman Nico Stephen Kutsia. He says Jocelyn's mother Kelly told him in August of 2023 that she's going to have her children taken away and she would accept 5,000 rand if they did not have the full amount of 20,000 rand. Smith, her boyfriend Jacqueline Apollos and Stevino van Rijn are on trial facing charges of kidnapping and human trafficking. The 7-year-old child went missing on the 19th of February last year and has still not been found. Further afield, and finally, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made a surprise visit to the Kursk region, where his forces are trying to end a Ukrainian incursion. Russian forces have been making steady gains, taking back territory in the region, the area of Russia that Ukraine attacked in 2024. It comes as the US tries to get Russia to agree to a ceasefire in the 3-year-long conflict. Images showed him dressed in combat gear, urging the commanders to complete the task.
I very much expect that all the combat tasks facing our units will be fulfilled and that the territory of the Kursk region will soon be completely liberated from the enemy.
Recapping the top story, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana says the decision to increase value-added tax from 15% to 16% over the next 2 years will have a greater impact on higher-income households as they generally consume more. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
5 Rand can't buy you a pie and cold drink anymore, but Outsurance is still committed to saving you big bucks on your car insurance. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy coming in from the south this morning into Joburg using the N1. It's a truck crash on the southbound side opposite Devlin, which is causing everybody northbound to have a look. So from Crossmere through to Deepcliff, it's really bad. If you come in from Lenasia, Protea Glen, think about alternative routes out through Aikenoff or through Soweto to avoid that N1 north. Flooding again in Centurion, so parts of Rabi, John Foster and Ender closed with motorists diverting into some congested alternative routes. The lights are still out coming out of Four Ways in Lone Hill area this morning, Main and Sloane, and Winnie Mandela and Sloane. So again, no change here. It really is exceptionally heavy. A lot of traffic on Malabongwe, north riding through Stratham Park, and President for Shear coming down from north riding towards Malabongwe is heavily backed up, worse than normal this morning as well. A lot of traffic lights out on that route. Cliffdale, on your way to Pietermaritzburg, the stationary truck still there, just after the Cliffdale exit, one lane open. Traffic is now back towards Key Ridge and pushing back towards Shongweni territory very quickly. Cape Town, N7 running north from Epping all the way through to Bosmansdam Road is pretty heavily backed up, and a crash on the M5 northbound just before you get to the N2. It's in the Rondebosch area. That's why the M5 is so heavily back from Parkwood Southfield. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's soccer action with the Kaizer Chiefs coach Nazruddin Nabi calling for more responsibility after a frustrating 0-0 draw. And in cricket action, the Dolphins, who benefited from the sanctions dished out to the Eastern Province Warriors, are through to the final of the One Day Cup. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 11 minutes after 7 on this Thursday. Good morning. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It is great to be in your company this morning. Well, what's coming up on this show over this hour, we get to keep the Social Relief of Distress grant for another year. We get to keep some 9,000 doctors in the system, some 11,000 teachers in the classroom, and we get to build massive infrastructure projects. But here's the takeaway. We are going to pay for it with a controversial 0.5% VAT increase this year and another 0.5% in a percentage point increase next year. That will take the value-added tax in this country to some 16%. Some other trade-offs coming into the picture, but much focus being on the VAT increase. And the reaction, both political and by civil society, has been swift. So in this hour, I'll be speaking to the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, whose party says they will not support the budget when it's finally debated and voted upon in Parliament. That conversation coming up over the next few minutes. Then we'll give you the analysis of Dr. Lumkile Mondi. Then also within this half hour, the Lilongwe Chief Resident Magistrates Court has ruled that South Africa has met the legal requirements to extradite Shepherd and Mary Bushiri, clearing the way for their possible return to face fraud, money laundering and other charges in this country. I'll be in conversation with the Minister of Justice, that is Minister Mamuluko Gupai, in whose portfolio issues such as extraditions fall. Through it all, feel free to give me a call and weigh in on these and other conversations that may be exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
My name is Blade Nzimande, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. No nation can hope to achieve its development goals without meaningful investment in science, technology and innovation. To enable this, we need a responsive and transformed national system of innovation. From the 13th to the 14th of March 2025, the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation will host the inaugural National System of Innovation Summit. The summit seeks to accelerate the transformation of our national system of innovation with the view of making it more responsive to our national priorities and developmental goals. The Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, making it possible.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
8:15 on this Thursday. Well, we looked everywhere, turned over every rock and went up every alley, but in the end, none of the other taxation options on the table could feasibly raise the revenue required to stave off devastating budget cuts and fund increased spending on health, education, transport and security. That, for me, about sums up the message from the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in justifying government's decision to increase value-added tax by a percentage point over by a percentage point over 2 years. Let's welcome into the conversation the leader of the Democratic Alliance, that is John Steenhuisen. Mr. Steenhuisen, good morning. Your party has said that you will not be supporting this budget. Why?
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners. Great to be with you this morning. We've said we're not supporting this budget in its current form for a number of reasons. One, we won't believe the budget speaks sufficiently to growth and jobs and is rather stuck in the same old cycle of borrow, tax and spend. And we believe that there were other measures available to be able to fix and fill the gap in the fiscus without having to increase the burden of the cost of living increases that are undoubtedly now going to fall on people through not only the VAT rise, but the fact that personal income tax will also be going up because there's no adjustment for bracket creep in this year. So it is a double whammy, actually, for South African citizens who will be hit on the personal income tax side, but also on the VAT side. We believe that going into government, the medium-term development plan speaks to reducing the cost of living, growing the economy and creating jobs. The reality is that if we do not start to focus on growth, economic growth, we're going to continue to be stuck in the 0.6% that we got in the last quarter, which is actually a regression. And we're going to be fighting in October to scrabble around for money, and we're going to be fighting in February next year. So what we would want to see is the big, bold structural reforms taking place now, government committing to them, providing time frames before you resort to taxing people into in an environment where people and households are already under significant pressure.
Well, the minister has spoken to various propositions that had been made about where to find the revenue to fund the expenditure that needs to be undertaken for various programs. So he ruled out, for instance, a corporate tax increase, ruled out increasing personal taxes for various reasons, and said all of that would not have been feasible. Where would you have wanted him to find the additional revenue, given also the realities that we face of the fact that we still owe so many people a lot of money? For instance, debt servicing costs at 389.6 billion rand in the current financial year, outstripping many of the social spend that we have.
Well, first of all, I think we must just be very clear. This budget is not free of borrowing. There's significant borrowing in this budget. So the debt servicing costs are not necessarily being relieved in a budget that is still relying on borrowing to fund large parts of government's programs. So borrowing is still a big feature of this budget. I think that one needs to put into context, Thulasizwe. If one looks at what the fiscal hole was, amounts to around 1.6% of the entire budget. Now, if you're telling me that you cannot, in a trillion rand budget, find 1.66% to find savings and the like, I would say to you that you need to get accountants that know how to look a little bit deeper. That's all we were looking for, was 1.6%. And I think that the lazy way to do it was to just simply go for a VAT increase, particularly because, as you know, inflation is high in South Africa and the cost of living has spiraled out of control. So the last thing you want to do is suppress spending in an economy like that by raising VAT and personal income tax.
But where are the savings, Mr. Steenhuisen? Where would he have found them? Where did you point him to in the consultations?
There are plenty of savings to be made across all government departments, and that's why we said that there should have been a comprehensive spending review done, that the Ghost Employees initiative should have been initiated before we had to start trying to find these holes, and that we should be sending out signals into the market that focus on a very clear direction of growth. There's not much in that budget that speaks to investors around how we're going to move from 0.6% of growth to real proper 3% that is promised in the medium-term development plan.
Does expenditure of 1 trillion rand in infrastructure not account for that aspect you're talking to?
Well, of course it does, but it's only one part of it. You're going to require investors to come into South Africa, and they need to be confident that that this is an environment that is investable. When you have things like the Expropriation Act hanging over everybody's heads, it's a deterrent to that type of investment coming in. The reality is that government doesn't have enough money of its own. We need other people's money, and that means we have to attract investment into the country if we're going to stimulate economic growth.
Lastly, then, let me ask you, your opposition to the current budget in its current form, how does that translate to the processes that are going to unfold in Parliament regarding the budget? What exactly will you do?
Well, what the finance minister has done is kicked a big up and under now into Parliament, and now the budget is going to be subject to the slings and arrows of a parliamentary process, which is odd to me that you would go and do that, because now it's going to have a million different cooks now over the broth. I've said we are open to further discussion, and we are comfortable to support a budget provided the initiatives that we would like to see that speak to economic growth with timeframes are included in it. The first vote will have to take place on the 2nd of April for the fiscal framework. Thereafter, the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill will have to be tabled and voted on. And then finally, DORA. Now, you need a majority of 50% plus one to get those passed. I think we can still find a majority, but there are going to have to be concessions made from the ANC side, because if we are expected to get behind a budget, it's also got to speak to the priorities that we believe are important to stimulate economic growth and job creation in the country.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. Listening to that is the economist Lumgile Mondi, who joins me now to take that conversation forward. He's political economist and senior lecturer of economics and business science at the University of the Witwatersrand. All right, I'm told that we will come back to that conversation with Lumgile Mondi shortly.
And then, how? SK, where are you going with that stuff?
My dog, I'm going whale watching. New hobby, you see. Finally going out to explore the world. Giri levels, Dwana.
I see the life jacket, but I don't know how an inflatable boat, megaphone, and a fishing rod fits into all of this.
How else am I going to get to the whales, bongs? I need the boat. The megaphone is to do my whale calls, and the fishing rod, it's called ambience. Ambience. If you don't get it, forget about it.
Okay, but SK, you know there aren't any whales here in Germiston Lake.
Ooh, Shem, Mr. Know-it-all. Whales live in the water, and Germiston Lake has water.
Hi, sure, Ntwana, go whale watching in Germiston Lake. Me! I'll tune into Whale with Steve Buckshall, Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
The other big story developing late yesterday in the afternoon and into the evening is this. The Lilongwe, in fact they say Lilongwe, the Lilongwe Chief Resident Magistrate Court has ruled that South Africa has met the legal requirements to extradite Shepherd and Mary Bushiri, clearing the way for their possible return to face fraud, money laundering and other additional criminal charges in this country. The couple, who fled South Africa in 2020, are accused of defrauding victims of up to 102 million rand and face charges including those of rape and bail violations. The court upheld 10 of the 13 charges that formed the basis of the extradition application, saying they are sufficient to warrant their prosecution in this country. Let's welcome the Minister of Justice, Mamulu Gugupai. Good morning to you, Minister, and thank you for your time. How significant a milestone is this process in the quest to have the Bushiris coming back to South Africa to face justice?
Good morning to your listeners. I think this is one of good news that we received yesterday. It's one of the areas that we always advocate for, that when people commit crimes in our country and they think that they can do as they please and leave, we will do within our mutual legal agreement tools that will be able to bring them back home, to be able to bring them back to South Africa to be able to face the charges. The charges that are faced by the Bushiri couple are not minor charges. I mean, you're talking about rape, you're talking about money laundering, and many people who have raised concerns about how they've done and conducted their issue. But the fact that they were facing court proceedings here and they fled the country, it's one of the areas that the magistrate looked at, the chief magistrate looked at, and also as we presented the case of South Africa to extradite them, it was seen that it is sufficient ground. And also the couple had indicated that they will oppose. They're going to appeal. We will oppose the appeal and fight till the end to ensure that they are back to face the music.
So given the possibility of an appeal, are we able to give any timelines and timeframes of by when you expect to have the Bushiris back in South Africa?
Currently not yet. We're waiting for the judgment to be issued out today. As you know, the matter happened. We had delays the whole day. The case was supposed to start at 9. It moved from 9 o'clock to 2 to 2 to 3 throughout the day. We're hoping that we can have the written judgment. The couple is remaining in custody. They have applied for bail. They are not, which I think the sentiment by the magistrate were encouraging, because it was meaning that he had taken into consideration all the issues and the fact that the couple is a flight risk. I'm hoping they don't grant them bail. They remain in custody so that all the other, whether it's the appeal, can be done while they're in custody. And in that way, we are assured that they will be delivered to South Africa for them to face trial.
So is that our understanding, that they are in custody at the moment as opposed to being out on bail, which was the previous position?
Yes, currently, yesterday they wanted to appeal. They were applying for bail. It was not processed yesterday. And also the issue of them appealing. That's why they had to notify immediately with a notice for appealing the judgment.
Right. So, Minister, in terms of the cooperation between the two countries, extraditions are, of course, a product of treaties and cooperation agreements on matters of justice between countries. What's the attitude of Malawi as far as you understand it? Once the case has ground through all the processes, what do we understand to be the position at the political level of the country of Malawi towards the Bushiris, knowing their popularity and support that they are believed to enjoy in that society?
Look, what we have received is that they are allowing the law to take its course within their jurisdiction and not interfering. That's what it is. I think the issue here, this is not a political matter, but a legal matter. And that's why we are approaching that way. And because we have this bilateral agreement as Justice Department and the Malawian government, it does allow us to be able to access those who are supposed to face the law in our country. So in terms of the process, once the magistrate, if the bail is denied or they abandon the appeal or the appeal is denied, we will work together as South Africa through the SAPS and Interpol. They will facilitate for them to come back into the country through their mechanisms, and then the state, in terms of South Africa, carries the cost to be able to bring them back in the country, and then they will stand trial here. And you would have heard NDPP yesterday, as he was addressing in various platforms, indicating that even from the beginning, the National Prosecuting Authority were opposed to their bail. I think they will do the same. I think it's the most reasonable for them to do. We don't want to influence them, but we hope that they will oppose bail, and we hope that South African courts will not grant them bail because they are a flight risk. And it will be difficult for us to get them back, and they should acknowledge the difficulty and the cost we had to incur in order for us to bring them back.
So naturally, Minister, this high-profile extradition that seems to be gaining some momentum raises questions about the other high-profile extraditions, those of the Guptas. How far does that stand given the setbacks that the NPA has suffered in the courts in as far as the criminal charges that implicate the Gupta brothers are concerned?
Yeah, with that as well, it's work in progress. There are quite a number of extraditions that we're working on as a department. Not only that, you know that there's a case as well of AKA in Swaziland. So there are a couple of them. As developments happen, we will address the nation, we will inform the nation, but work happens behind the closed doors. With the Gupta's one, I think there were quite a lot of complexities. One, in terms of no agreement in place at the time they started the process and all those things. So that's why it makes it difficult. Hence, we have committed ourselves as a department, especially myself as minister, to drive the issue of ensuring that there's agreements across with many countries, so that when we have this type of cases, we do not face difficulties in terms of making applications for them to be extradited back to South Africa.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is the Minister of Justice, Mamoloko Gupai, talking about the extradition ruling that has come out from Malawi with regard to Shepard and Mary Bushiri. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Thanks, Thulas. Good morning. In the headlines, the DA says it does not support the 2025-2026 budget tabled by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in Parliament. The party has criticised the ANC for the proposed increase of VAT by 0.5 percentage point. The Office of Health Standards Compliance has vowed to monitor the implementation of its recommendations to the Gauteng Health Department on the state of Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. The office, in collaboration with the Health Ombudsman, have released the report into allegations of neglect at the hospital. And government says it will oppose an appeal by the self-proclaimed prophet in Malawian national Shepard Bushiri and his wife after the chief magistrate in Lilongwe ordered the pair to be extradited. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy on the N1 North today, coming in from the south side of Joburg. It's the truck crash recovery going south opposite Devlin, N1 at Golden Highway. That's where the action is unfolding. So there is a bit of a queue going through Deepcliff towards that, but the high volume northbound backs heavily from the Deadman's Bed, N12, N1, all the way through to Deepcliff interchange. It's been a queue that's been building through the morning. Mike 1 pretty solid from around about sort of Boysons all the way down to Grayston Drive. We had an earlier crash this morning at Grayston Drive, and it looks like it's probably been clear, but it's just really solid traffic all the way through. Also, four ways, Lone Hill, both of those areas a disaster again. Lots of lights out. The big ones, William Mandela and Leslie, William Mandela and Sloane, Vidcoppin at Leslie, and Main at Sloane. So whether you're coming out of Lone Hill or whether you're coming out of four ways towards the Bryanston area, it's heavily backed up. Centurion, all closed around the Head Ops River again, and John Foster and Rabi, so you're looping around in some heavy diversion traffic from one side of Centurion to the other. The stationary truck at Cliffdale is still there if you're on your way out of Durban to Pietermaritzburg. That queue almost back as far as Shongweni. There's a super heavy backlog. Pietermaritzburg bound. Cape Town crash on the M5 north at the M2. That busy highway backing you up with a queue down to Southfield and Parkwood. That's very heavy, that M5 coming in this morning. Left lane closure at that crash in. And an earlier collision on the R300 north at the N1 causing a backlog coming up from Cales River through Brackenfell. The R300 slow going into towards that N1 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So we've been saying Nabi is cooking, but he doesn't like how the recipe is turning out, and he's just expressing his concern with his players.
Absolutely. Nabi is saying put the ball in the goal and the game will be finished, but Chiefs players are hearing something else. Finish the game without putting the ball in the goal. So that's how it is. That's how it played out last night. A goalless draw for Kaizer Chiefs against Cape Town City. Although Chiefs dominated the game, they failed to find the back of the net, with Mduduzi Shabalala missing a golden chance in the first half. So the hunt for 3 points continues, with their next game looming this week for Chiefs. Golden Arrows, they snapped their winless streak in the Betway Premiership. 1-0 was their away win against Polokwane City at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium. Sekhukhune United bagged a 2-1 win against Marumo Gallants in their match. That kickoff delayed around 45 minutes as a result of heavy rain at the popular Dr. Molimela Stadium. Both sides made to wait to commence their latest league assignment. Elsewhere, Borussia Dortmund beat Lille 2-1 in France in the second leg of their Champions League last 16 tie, sealing a 3-2 aggregate victory and a place in the quarterfinals. Arsenal, they set up a Champions League quarterfinal showdown with either Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid, with a 2-2 draw with PSV Eindhoven at the Emirates Stadium. They had a 9-3 aggregate win. Aston Villa through to the quarterfinals. Marco Asensio inspired them to beat 10-man Club Brugge 3-0 and secure a 6-1 aggregate win. Here's the Aston Villa boss, Unai Emery, proud.
This is the level, and we are in this level. We have to be proud, but as well, we want more. And we want now to compete against the better team in the world, the better 18 they are in the Champions League for the quarter final. We are one of them, and of course now our priority is to try to be close the level we are facing.
Cricket, the Dolphins, who benefited from the sanctions dished out to the Eastern Province Warriors. They used their home ground advantage to qualify for the final of the One-Day Cup with a 65-run victory against the Titans last night, having returned figures of 3 wickets of 17 balls. Slow left-arm orthodox spinner, of course, Keshav Maharaj, helping the Dolphins defend 228 runs at Kingsmead. Well, the Dolphins, they will now face the Gold Rush Boland in the final in Paarl come Sunday. Cycling, João Almeida outsprinted Jonas Vingegaard over the last few meters to take stage 4 of the Paris-Nice yesterday. And in tennis action, there's no stopping Elina Svitolina. She soared to her first WTA 1000 quarterfinal since the 2021 Italian Open and her first at Indian Wells since 2 years previously. The former world number 3 Svitolina came from behind to prevail 5-7, 6-1, 6-2 against the 4th seed Jessica Pegula. Here's Svitolina.
I got a lot of messages of support from American people, and also, a lot of people here when I arrived at the tournament were, just giving the love and support to Ukrainians, for people back at home. So yes, it's just based on a personal experience that I had here. Also, the massive support that I got.
More sport on the top of the hour. For the morning brief, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's talk property. You are telling me this morning that the local property sector is recovering, and that's showing in as far as Growth Point's earnings are concerned.
That's right, Thulas, and we've been seeing it throughout the week in a number of property counters. This time around, property giant Growth Point reporting a 3.9% increase in distributable income per share, driven by improved performance from its South African operations. It's also interesting to see that contributions from its bigger mall, particularly V&A Waterfront, was what gave earnings a boost. And this was also seen yesterday in a tax results where Mall of Africa contributed the most to earnings growth on that front. Now, in the interim period, V&A Waterfront delivered a 16.6% like-for-like increase in net property income due to increased tourism within the Western Cape. That led to an over 6% rise in SA net property income. The company's loan-to-value ratio improved to 40.8% from 42.3% the previous year, with the South African loan-to-value ratio declining to 35.3%. Growth Point is also making progress with its disposable program. It has been disposing of non-core buildings, particularly office property. Over the past 6 months period, they disposed of 12 properties for 589.4 million rands, resulting in a profit on book value of 7.4 million rands. Now, those funds will be pushed through to their industrial and logistics plans, where it's acquiring more buildings within that subsector. Looking ahead, Growth Point expects distributable income per share to grow by 1 to 3% for the 2025 financial year. Despite uncertainty surrounding interest rate movements, the company anticipates improved performance from its domestic portfolio, driven by strengthening property fundamentals as well as strong operational fundamentals from its international investments.
Sticking with the theme and the sector of property, tell me about Vugile Property Fund. Tell me about their expansion in Spain.
So they've acquired a mall in Spain for about 6.1 billion rand, marking its largest deal to date. The purchase of Bonaire Shopping Center in Valencia province expands Vukile's presence in Spain, the fourth largest economy in the Eurozone. Now, the deal was financed using proceeds from the sale of Vukile's estate in La Espana, a retail property investor listed in that country. Now, Vukile's CEO Lawrence Rapp is bullish on Spain as it's the world's second most popular tourist destination. Spain's booming tourism sector fuels demand for prime retail spaces in popular areas like Madrid and Barcelona. Now, Vukile has operated in Spain for over 7 years through its subsidiary Castellana, which manages 19 retail assets across Spain and Portugal. So they're not new in that region. The company is confident that the Spanish retail sector will continue to strengthen, and so it's paying its hopes on improved performance on that front.
All right, Ndauling, how are the markets looking both here at home and elsewhere in the world?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets mixed as slowing inflation provided some comfort, but the impact of tariffs on the global economy is still really spooking investors. With that, we see the Hong Kong Hang Seng trading higher, up 1.1%, while the Japanese Nikkei loses about 0.2%. In Wall Street, futures surprisingly in the red, and this despite a better than expected CPI print. And then coming back home, stocks mixed, with the all share down close to 0.33% in yesterday's close. This, of course, comes as investors continue to digest the national budget that was tabled yesterday. The rand, in the meantime, pretty stable at 18.36 to the dollar this hour.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela. She'll be back with one more update for you in the third hour of the show, giving you a glimpse into what you can expect in the markets for this Thursday.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Wazanawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, welcome back. Let's start with issues around elections in Southern Africa, in the SADC region. There are 2 meetings taking place. There's the SADC Council of Ministers, but also there's a SADC Heads of State virtual meeting, which is today.
Refreshing morning, Tulas and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Tulas, we know that today there's a big meeting, but before the meeting of Heads of State, normally we have Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs who will engage, but this time SADC is looking at broader issues to us also that will include the elections that will be held in Malawi, Tanzania, as well as you know that those elections will be monitored. It's Tanzania, Malawi, Seychelles, and also they will receive a report from the former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, on the mediation efforts in Lesotho, as well as you know, to us, the issue of the SADC mission in the DRC will be at the spotlight of the meeting of the heads of state in terms of are they withdrawing to us or they will reconsider what is going on with the Luanda mediation process that Lerato touched on it yesterday to us. So this is an important meeting of SADC heads of state as well as the ministers of foreign affairs.
And you and I have been talking about the parallel government in Sudan that has been set up by the Rapid Support Forces, parallel to the ordinary Sudanese army government that they've set up. The AU Peace and Security Council has had something to say about that.
Because they are absolutely, rejecting all those parallel governments, saying that they are threatening the Sudan's unity. That is the wisdom of the late John Garang Di Mabio, who wanted one Sudan, if you can recall, Thulas. But this meeting of the AU Peace and Security Council raised the issue that since 2023 you have been having this crisis in Sudan, and now you have parallel governments. There's no way that you can recognize either RSF or the Sudanese army as the government of Sudan. There is a need for this engagement of dealing with the crisis in North Sudan.
And then tell me, Sipho, about the gathering that is happening in Kigali of experts for the UNDP conference on tackling Africa's governance challenges. What's that about?
So this is a very important meeting of the UNDP. At the same time, they're bringing 35 countries in this meeting that they are looking at issues of governance, peace-building challenges across the continent. They are trying to emulate what you know, Thulas, after the Rwanda genocide, the Gacaca court system, what we call Africa dispute resolution mechanism. Others have said, Thulas, what is alternative rather than we go straight to say Africa dispute resolution mechanism. With the crisis that we have in the Eastern DRC, with the crisis that we have in Sudan, as well as in the Sahel region. Now, this meeting is very important because they are looking at Agenda 2063, they are looking at SDGs and the new agenda for peace. And as you know, UNDP has invested to us a lot on these pillars of governance and peace building.
And then closer to home in Mozambique, tell me about the questioning that Venancio Mondlane has been subjected to in that country.
Thulas was almost for 10 hours. He was questioned by prosecutors. His supporters were outside the building. And those charges we know, Thulas, is the post-electoral violence that have been happening in Mozambique since last year, October. Now, Mondlane has been charged. There are 8 cases that are linked to him in terms of the protest. We know that 300 people died post-electoral violence in Mozambique. Now, this, we can say that it won't maybe resolve the crisis in Mozambique. Once we have prosecution at the same time, we have the national dialogue, we have a peace process that is going on, but Mondlane is currently facing the law in Mozambique.
All right, in your historical archives, Sipho, take me back to 13 March 1980.
This was a sad moment in South Africa 45 years ago when one of the activists, one of the founding members of the African National Congress Women's League, Masidiba Matabane Lillian Ngoyi, passing at the age of 68 in Soweto in Gauteng. We know that many streets that have been named after Lillian Ngoyi, from Tshwane to Gauteng to many provinces have emulated the character of this woman who also led the 1956 march on the 9th of August. So today we honor Masidiba Lillian Matabane Ngoyi. Asante sana Thulas as was leading the conversation. SAFM observing the Sharpeville Langa massacre man.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, so a lot of you reflecting on the budget as well as the political fallout that has followed from the delivery of the budget, which included that 1 percentage point increase in VAT spread over 2 years. Let's hear what you've had to say about that.
Good morning, Sizwe. Just a question on the budget. As the DA and many other parties within GNU and also outside of GNU are not in agreement with the budget, could we see a situation whereby government collapse because of that? What does it look like for us as South Africans as well? Is VAT still going to go ahead as planned, I think on the 1st of April? So, yeah, just a question around that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I must say I'm no expert, but from the little that I've picked up, the process is that, the minister presents a speech, but attached to that speech are a whole lot of bills. Division of Revenue Bill being one of them. So they're called money bills, and they require the support of Parliament for them to actually become something that can be the basis for spending money. And that's the process that John Steenhuisen was talking to. It sounds to me from the conversation with John Steenhuisen that they would be open to supporting a budget, but the ANC within the Government of National Unity would need to accommodate a lot of what the DA wants. But of course, it's not just up to the ANC and the DA, of course, because as John Steenhuisen was saying, now it's open to many cooks. Many other people will, members of parliament will play a role, other political parties. And if you were listening, the theme is almost constant of the rejection of the 1 percentage point increase in VAT over 2 years. Parties such as the EFF, the MK party opposed to it. So I suppose that's my long way of saying that I don't know whether we could find ourselves in a situation where the budget is not approved through the various processes and voting that will take place in Parliament.
Tulas, it's Chris in Camperdown. We announced this 1 trillion for infrastructure over the next 3 years, but what they don't announce are 2 critical points. Over the years, we have been having problems with spending on project financing, meaning that we do not have capacity. How have we built that capacity? But secondly, what is missing is how that trillion is going to be financed. Where is it going to come from in this in the state of our public finances? Those are 2 big questions that the minister could not provide detail for in his budget speech.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for that. Thank you for highlighting that. Well, I did see a whole portion of the speech that talks to the whole concept of triple Ps, public-private partnerships. And that seems to me to be the way that government is now going, as well as I think the government was talking about the infrastructure bond as far as financing of these projects is concerned. It's all a bit technical, and I don't claim any expertise, but I must say I did see that portion that talks to the role of triple Ps in the delivery of some of the infrastructure that we need in this country.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A couple of big issues this morning lingering and taking a while to clear up. One of them is the N1 North. This is the run-up from Grasmere, or coming across from Protea Glen through from Lenasia using the N12 onto the N1. The N1 is stationary from Deadman's Bend up to Deepcliff interchange. There's truck crash recovery on the southbound side that is slowing southbound traffic through Deepcliff, but the real impact is on that northbound side. The Mike 1 this morning, no gaps between Boysons and Santon. It's a combination of heavy traffic flows and a couple of broken down vehicles here and there. Vitkopper North riding up towards Douglasdale area, on your way to Four Ways, very slow. Four Ways in Lone Hill, a disaster. Again, loads of traffic lights out there. Same sort of deal around Olifants and N1 and New Road and Lever and New Road and the N1. Loads of traffic lights out in that part of Midrand, and that very busy commuting routes and quite heavy backlogs. N4 into Pretoria coming in through Watermeyer Street towards the M1 highway. That's quite slow as well. Update out of Durban to Pietermaritzburg. The queue between Shongweni and Cliffdale's probably about 40 to 45 minutes. Stationary trucks been there all morning. One lane open as you get up to Cliffdale. If you don't fancy it, come off at Richmond Road, go up Fields Hill, into Hillcrest, take the old main road, Drummond, Borters Hill, come back on it in Chunga, or maybe push through and rejoin at Cato Ridge. When you know about those stationary trucks at Cliffdale and you know about the heavy delays, the alternative route will just keep you moving through that area. Cape Town, Newlands area, Newlands Claremont, I guess, Campground Road, Palmyra Road, Kiaboom, all very heavily backed up in that part of town. And a crash on the M5 running north up by the N2. That's the reason for big delays coming through from sort of Ottery side this morning up through Rondebosch. And if you're leaving Tableview, there's delays on the Bloberg Road down to Kuberg Road. That looks quite heavy towards the refinery side, and the West Coast Road Marine Drive option from Bayside Mall. Really, you'll see traffic right through to about Lagoon Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Waza Nawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, allocating some 1 trillion rand for infrastructure over the next 3 years. 402 billion rand of that will go towards transport and logistics infrastructure, with 100 billion rand allocated to the South African National Roads Agency Limited, that's SANRAL, to keep the national road network in good condition. The minister also announcing that provincial roads departments will reseal over 16,000 lane kilometers of roads in their areas of authority. I'm joined now by the CEO of SANRAL, that's Reginald Demana. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So just against the context and backdrop of what you need to do, last year the Minister of Transport telling Parliament that you need 307 billion rand to repair and improve our country's national road system, while you've been given 100 billion rand over the medium term. Does that go some way towards helping you?
Yeah, good morning to Thulasizwe and the listeners at large. Certainly 100 billion allocation over 3 years is in line with what we expect. When we talk about the overall backlog across the national road system, both non-toll and toll roads, it is significant, but there is no way that even given that amount, we will be able to execute all that work in 3 years. So what we have is adequate given the capacity and the speed at which one can really roll out infrastructure of this nature over a 3-year period.
What are the pressing needs? I mean, when one looks at your network, I didn't know, for example, that your network only accounts for 4% of our, entire road network. That's not big, but in terms of what it carries, it's quite significant.
Indeed, very significant, because it accounts for about 32 or so percent of all vehicle traffic kilometers traveled. It accounts for about 60 to 70% of freight on the roads. And of course, these are the main roads that everybody uses on a daily basis, whether you're connecting inland to coastal provinces, whether you're connecting South Africa to other countries in the SADC. So very important network. The most important aspect in terms of capital allocation for us is maintenance. So for us, all types of maintenance that we need to do, that's where we allocate money first, because you need to keep the roads that you already have in good condition. If you let them deteriorate, if you let potholes start developing, coupled with heavy wear and tear as well as extreme weather conditions, the deterioration becomes excessive and it becomes very expensive. So firstly, the priority is maintenance. And then after that, you also start looking at improvements, expansion, addition of lanes, and adding other various sort of things that you may want the road to look much better. But otherwise, maintenance first.
Which corridors are particularly pressing? And I ask this in the context, for instance, of the N3 and the extensive work that I've seen that has been done towards, as you approach Pietermaritzburg into Durban, but also in the context, if I'm not mistaken, the build, operate and transfer period of the concessionaire there has ended. Has that road fallen into your hands as well?
No, let me start on the concessions. The concessions, they have not yet ended. The first one on the N4 to Maputo, the track one, I think comes to an end towards 2027, early 28. So all of them are still active. But coming to the flagship projects, you're right, the N3 is a major corridor, one of the most important, if not the most important road in South Africa, going to Durban, of course, because of the Durban port. So we're spending a lot of money on that corridor, as well as the N2. So if you're going N2 south towards Eastern Cape, that's also an important road for us. In the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, we're also spending significant amount of money to open up that route all the way to Cape Town. If you take the N2 north towards Richards Bay, spending a lot of money there, and also we are now also starting to expand it from Emelo down to the KZN border, a number of significant projects there. So all with the aim of unlocking access in and out of Durban through the different corridors. But also the N1 South from Bloemfontein towards Cape Town, lots of investments must take place there so that we can add an additional carriageway and separate north and south traffic, because now there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of trucks, it's unsafe to drive. N1 North to Limpopo, again, a major corridor that must be developed. And I must also add Muloto Road, which has dubbed the road of death previously, an important corridor for us, as well as for the three provinces that it connects, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo.
So lastly, let me ask you this. Earlier on, we were reporting about some progress that we are told is being made in KwaZulu-Natal around pushing back against the construction mafia syndicates that disrupt projects. This was an issue that affected your work, at least according to the report given by the minister last year, talking about how repair work sometimes could be delayed, dogged by delays that were caused by, factors including the operations of construction mafias. Are you seeing a turnaround in that situation?
Yeah, certainly there is a turnaround, Thulasizwe. For us, really, we engage with all stakeholders across the board. Whatever you want to call them, we engage them. We engage with our local communities. We spend a lot of time managing our community stakeholders and local SMMEs. Of course, in our projects, there's always that allocation to local SMMEs and jobs and small contractors to make sure that there's economic benefits flowing, there's ownership of the infrastructure that's being developed there. That helps a lot because now they can see what SANRAL is doing in terms of economic benefit to them, as well as developing infrastructure that is of benefit to them as well. So stakeholder management is a key priority in SANRAL.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That is the CEO of SANRAL, Reginald Demana. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, DA criticizes the ANC over proposed VAT increase and recommendations on Helen Joseph Hospital to be monitored. Good morning. The DA says it does not support the 2025-2026 budget tabled by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in Parliament. The party has criticized the ANC for the proposed increase of VAT by 0.5 percentage point. DA leader John Steenhuisen says the budget reflects the political dynamics of the GNU.
It's clearly, obviously, a bridge too far for the ANC, and that is why we have not been able to reach a compromise on the budget. However, our door remains open. I'm happy to keep the conversation going, but there has to be a realization this is a coalition. It's not my way or the highway. It requires compromise on all sides.
Meanwhile, Minister Godongwana says the decision to increase VAT from 15% to 16% will have a greater impact on higher income households as they generally consume more. He says South Africa's VAT rate is still relatively lower compared to its peers like Nigeria, Australia and Botswana, among others.
Taking on additional debt to meet the spending pressures was also not feasible. The amount is simply too large. The cost of borrowing would be unaffordable. Our sub-investment credit rating would also make this level of borrowing costlier and put us at a risk of even further downgrowth. Madam Speaker, VAT is a tax that affects everyone. By opting for a marginal increase to VAT, its distributional effect and impact were costly considered.
The Office of Health Standards Compliance has vowed to monitor the implementation of its recommendations to the Gauteng Health Department on the state of Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. The office, in collaboration with the Health Ombud, have released a report into allegations of neglect at the hospital. The investigation was launched after broadcaster Tom London shared videos on social media in September last year. In the videos, he detailed the appalling treatment he received from hospital staff and exposed the hospital's deteriorating infrastructure. Office spokesperson Ricardo Matlakanya.
We have made recommendations to the Gauteng Department of Health. From time to time, as the Office of Health Standards Compliance monitor those recommendations as to whether they are implemented indeed. And then we'll monitor and also report back in terms of those that were implemented and those that were not implemented. And I must also indicate that as the Office of Health Standard Compliance, we do have, enforcement powers. And then once those that were not, implemented, we've got the right to implement our enforcement.
The family of the late Constitutional Court Justice Yvonne Mokgoro says they're seeking justice as the culpable homicide trial of a partner began in the Berkeley West Regional Court in the Northern Cape. The Berkeley West Regional Court set aside 3 days this week for the trial of David Melesi. He was allegedly the driver of the vehicle which collided with a truck in April of 2023. Justice Mokgoro died on the 9th of May last year. Mokgoro's son, Itateng, says they want to hear the truth.
We've been seeking the truth for 2 years, almost 2 years now. And it's great to finally be at this point where even though there's contestation for what the truth is, we are finally getting, the actual story of what truly happened on that night, the minutes before she became unconscious.
Environmental health practitioners have taken samples of bread and processed meat from a Bloemfontein school hostel for lab testing. This comes after more than 20 learners from Brebner High School fell ill with gastro-related symptoms. The Free State Health Department spokesperson Mondli Mvambi says for now the source is still under investigation. Mvambi says 11 learners were treated at a government clinic where the rest went to private healthcare facilities for medical treatment. Government says it will oppose an appeal by self-proclaimed prophet and Malawian national Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary after the chief magistrate in Lilongwe ordered the pair to be extradited. The judge ruled that South Africa meets the extradition requirements under Malawi's Extradition Act. In 2020, the Bushiris appeared before 2 different courts in South Africa on multiple criminal charges. They were granted bail pending trial but failed to comply with their bail conditions and fled the country. They were later located in Malawi, the Justice Department spokesperson Terence Manasseh.
The Bushiris face various charges including violating bail conditions, contraventions of financial and banking laws, contraventions of civil aviation and immigration laws, amongst others. The couple had fled South Africa in 2020 after being granted bail and were later found in Malawi. The South African government had submitted an extradition request which has now been approved. However, the Bushiris intend to appeal the ruling and South African government will oppose the appeal.
Recapping the top story, the DA says it does not support the 2025-2026 budget tabled by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in Parliament. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty heavy on Joburg's N3 North this morning, lining up from Germiston through to around about Modderfontein Road. There's a broken down vehicle just north of Modderfontein as you come out of Edenvale into Alex, and that's a big queue that starts around Helton Nation because the N3 is so heavy. N12 and R24, it's coming in from the east, badly backed up. Idigalili's trying to get in. Mike 1, not too many gaps this morning. Boyson's all the way through to Grayston Drive. Make sure you got extra time to get through there. The N1 easing up towards Dipcliffe Interchange, but the truck crash recovery continues. The truck crash between the Dipcliffe Interchange and the Golden Highway exit of Devlin on the southbound, which is subject to some queues, but it's the northbound that's been heavy this morning. It is starting to ease, but that may well be as volumes drop off. Durban's N2 still heavy from the M7 through Westwood Mall into the roadworks. About a 45 minute queue from Shongweni side up to Cliffdale. That broken down truck has been there all morning and just one lane open to process all the big volume. And Cape Town, a couple of crash scenes taking a while to clear. The R300 north of the N1, that's slow into that collision scene. And the M5 north, a crash at the N2, keeping volumes heavy from the Kenilworth Ottery side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SAFM Sports Headlines. It is rugby. The Springbok Stars will battle it out for the SA Rugby Player of the Year Awards tonight. And in tennis action from Indian Wells in California, it's Carlos Alcaraz who breezes past Grigor Dimitrov. We'll find out more around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8 on this Thursday. Good morning. It's good to be in your company. We are into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. We've been talking quite extensively about the implications of the budget speech that was delivered by Minister of Finance Enoch Godongwana. Various sectors reacting and responding. The political fallout, I've been saying, has been swift in as far as the announced 0.5 percentage point increase in value-added tax for this year and a similar increase for next year, cumulatively taking the increase in VAT to 1 percentage point, so to 16% by 2026, 2027. So a lot of people debating that. There are other highlights, of course, in the budget. They do include that 1 trillion rand spend on infrastructure over a 3-year period, the medium term. That's part of the announcement. But importantly, there was a point before the budget speech was delivered where there was uncertainty and there was a bit of a debate about, well, maybe we might want to look at the social relief of distress grant as a line item in that budget and see if we can't cut on that. The minister announcing that that will be kept as it is for at least another year, and again talking about it forming the basis of some kind of income support for the country's poor. So that's one thing that has come out of that. There's also talk about SARS being allocated some 3.5 billion rand in the current financial year to help them with their operations and their ability to recover a lot of money that they say is outstanding, that they say would help in terms of the shortfalls that we face. You may want to weigh in on all of these issues. What do you think about the balance that was struck? Was a balance struck in terms of the budget that was delivered? But also the question now becoming what happens now as what is known as these money bills are taken to Parliament to be debated extensively and voted upon by members of Parliament. Will we see a situation where we have a budget that is passed, and will it look anything like what was delivered by Minister Enoch Godongwana yesterday? The number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Of course, the other story has been the decision in the court in Malawi that says the Bushiris can be extradited to South Africa because 10 out of the 13 charges that South Africa tabled before that country's courts to justify why they should be brought to this country to be prosecuted. The magistrate in Lilongwe finding that those 10 out of 13 actually do warrant prosecution, and therefore their extradition would be A-OK. But I do believe that we are a long way off given the possibilities of appeal that the South African government says they will be opposing if the Bushiris decide to appeal. Weigh in on that and any other issue that may be exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial again is 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
A convicted murderer on death row, a vicar in a quiet English town, and a maths teacher trapped in a cellar cross paths in the most unexpected way. Jefferson Grief is on death row in an American prison for brutally murdering his wife. But it turns out that Grief has a gift. He can solve crimes from inside his cell. English journalist Beth Davenport needs Grief's help. Janice, a woman who recently helped Beth, has gone missing. The last Beth heard from Janice? A text with a blurry image of a man lunging towards the camera. Will Grief crack the case in time? Exactly how is Janice's local vicar involved? And is it really possible to solve a crime before it is committed? Tune into Inside Man, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 12 February only on S3. Open up.
S3.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take your calls. Let me start with Thabo in Kronstadt. Good morning to you, Thabo. On the agenda, budget 2025.
Yes, I hear you say the balance was struck.
No, I'm asking whether it was struck.
No, DA say he wiped everything on the table, not accepting the budget. Now, our worry is that now, and he's just say the expropriation of land is hanging on their head. And then, the spokesperson or somebody of the DA say the government can collapse because DA is just leading us on the dark room to say keep the door open. Now, we are wondering now, ANC brought us to this budget with absent knowledge what is going to happen now. They give us a price of increasing the VAT. We are wondering now where to go now. That is what I wanted to weigh in now.
Yeah, no, I wish I could help Thabo about the uncertainty. I'm in the same boat, my brother. Let's hope there will be clarity as these matters are debated in Parliament.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Thabo in Kronstadt there. Ralph in Boksburg, good morning. Maybe you have more certainty about which way this thing is going to go around the budget.
Good morning to you, to us and the listeners. Yes, hi. Yesterday you were saying how in favor of BEE you are. And I'm just wondering whether your listeners realize what you are actually advocating. The concept of this BEE says that a company that is BEE can charge 25% more on a tender than a company that isn't. And the government is then obliged to take that tender. So if someone tenders 10 million for a contract and the BEE comes along with 12.5 million, they get the contract and they get 2.5 million on seller without having to deliver anything more than the company that offered 10 million. So that is what they call the BEE premium. Now, according to Treasury, since 2017, between 350 billion and 800 billion has gone to BEE companies. That's what they've squandered. That's the premium that they've paid over this period. Now, government is looking for 80 billion now, and they've already say that they've squandered between 750 and 800 billion dollars. Now, hang on a minute, please. Let me just finish my argument. So when when the average person in the street, when they go and buy their groceries and they look at their bill and there's VAT there, ask them, are they happy that they're paying that VAT and it's being confiscated and given to people who are doing nothing, because those BEE companies are already millionaires, they're already fat cat millionaires.
Can I say something now?
No, but please just let me finish the argument, and then you can. So you can ask yourself, well, has BEE actually been benefiting black people? Well, the black unemployment rate has almost doubled from 6 million to 11 million. So obviously, this whole BEE story has not been benefiting.
Okay, Ralph, I've got to engage you, though. I've got to engage you in the limited time that you and I have. Can I now clarify for you what it is that I'm in support of? I'm in support of this country's constitution. And if you read this country's constitution, section 9 and subsection 2, where it talks about the right to equality that everyone enjoys, it does talk about measures, legislative and other measures that can be taken to advance those who have suffered historical patterns of discrimination. That is not the fact that the legislative pathway that has been taken is Triple BEE Act, Employment Equity Act, etc., etc. That's meant to fulfill what is an injunction from our constitution that says, that recognizes that because of the past, we are where we are as a country, and we cannot have substantive equality until we address that issue. Some call it redress, call it what you may. Where the failures have occurred in implementation, that's something that we can critique and debate at length, but the need for substantive equality, because anything not built on substantive equality in this country, we are fooling ourselves. There's no equality. There's no stability that can be built on the basis of a formal equality that just says, that declares we are all equal now, and doesn't take into account the realities, the stark realities that we face. That is what I'm in support of. The bastardization that calls it BEE only doesn't take into account the full basket of interventions that are meant to fulfill that Section 9.2 injunction in our Constitution. I have a serious problems with some of those. You need to be nuanced in your analysis of these interventions and not use it as a scarecrow. That is my position. Do I defend the failures that have occurred? Absolutely not. There was a point where focus was mainly on transferring ownership to prominent South Africans. There was that first wave, I think it was called, of BEE. There have been various other steps that have been taken since that occurred. There are other interventions that you don't bring into account. The enterprise development element that comes in, where that these are not wealthy ANC-connected cronies that people like to talk about. You're talking about enterprises owned by women in various parts. Companies are taking that on board. Were they going to do that without the legislative requirements that are there? I believe they wouldn't. Many wouldn't have done that. That is what I stand for. Ralph? All right. I think we've lost Ralph there. So that was my response to what Ralph was saying about what it is that I do support and what I don't support. Anything else that he's talking about, that's got nothing to do with me. I stand with the Constitution of this republic. David in Pietermaritzburg, good morning. Talk to me about employment of people of color.
Thanks, Makutwa. Your one caller yesterday spoke about the exclusion and marginalization of black people.
Yes.
By the retail shops in Eastern Cape, I think so.
Yes.
Specifically, yes, I want to concur with your caller because you'll recall that this came said the CEO there's an oversupply of white people in managerial positions, and AfriForum together with the Solidarity.
Yes.
Fought that matter to the nail because they clearly represent the interest of the white people. And for me, it's not the same case when it comes to the black youth who are graduates who are excluded and marginalized by private sector in general. If you come in Durban, you go to any private sector, any company, you will see the dominance of Indians in those companies. The black people that you see, the majority, are cleaners. So for me, I'm challenging the youth formations that align themselves with the previously disadvantaged people to raise the voice for these graduates who are treated badly. If you go to the call centers, you find that the black graduates are being supervised by Indians. Some of them, they don't have matric, and they are badly treated. They're paid slavery salaries. So I'm also
is it your sense, David, that this is disproportionate in terms of the population composition? Because the population of areas like Durban in South Africa it does include a significant amount of Indian South Africans.
Yes, in terms of the demographics, yes.
Do you believe that?
Proportionate.
Do you believe that the employment patterns don't mirror that in the way that they should?
Yes, exactly. But I'm also challenging the youth formations, UFA Simba, Youth League, the Youth Brigade. Because when these black graduates apply for this job, they don't check whether you are IFP,
right, whether
you are ANC. They exclude you because of color, that you are black.
All right.
So they must wake up and fight this thing. They must look at what the AfriForum and the Solidarity are doing for white people. Thank you.
All right, David, thank you for that. That's David out in Pietermaritzburg. Let me take a call from Mark in Durban. Good morning to you, Mark. You want to talk to me about Budget 2025?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Thulasizwe, for taking my call. My grandson is 10 years old. When he came back from school, before he changes the channel, he was sitting next to me watching the budget. And when the VAT was increased, oh no. When I said, this means prices going up. So he asked me the question, Grandpa, when I am big, this VAT thing will be 50-60%. Will I be able to afford to buy food? What do I tell him?
Yeah.
And so I'd like, Ndongwana to respond to this here.
Yeah.
Have this government got a plan? Just another point, with this abduction things going on, we are begging parents, grandchildren to be vigilant. Don't take things for granted, because this kidnapping thing is going to become more bigger. So please, can we get somebody to, so I can explain to my grandson, don't stress. When you're big, it won't be 50, 60, 70% VAT
Hopefully,
that you will be paid.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you for that. I
Thank
was
you.
chuckling because, of course, that's a young child, a young boy already worrying about, the realities of what it will be like when he is now employed and working and a taxpayer in this country. Thank you for those calls. We'll continue to take them throughout the show.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Dr. Nikki Alexander, Dr. Thomas Chamberlain, and Dr. Jack Hodgson form a dedicated team of forensic pathologists who try to work out how and why the victim died. This series sees Nikki investigate a murder that's a carbon copy of a case from her past. She soon suspects that the killings are personal to her. But who will believe her? Meanwhile, Jack creates tension when he finds himself aligned with a police complaints investigator over the accidental shooting of a girl by armed police. And a seemingly random killing in the remote countrysides leads Nikki and Jack into the dangerous underbelly of a criminal world. This is Silent Witness, Thursdays and Fridays at 10 p.m. Starts 20 February only on S3. Open up.
Imagine living in a community free from gender-based violence and femicide. That reality is possible, but only if we commit to building families that are free from violence and are inclusive, where children are raised equally. Every child has the right to grow up in a loving, nurturing, and safe environment that promotes good mental health. So do not forget about the boy child. He too needs to be protected from all exposures of violence. Pay attention to the boy child today and watch him grow to be a responsible man that society can be proud of. Stop gender-based violence and report any cases of child neglect and abuse at your nearest police station. Or call the Gender-Based Violence Command Center on 0800 428 428. A message brought to you by the GCIS.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, a few more of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. Let me take this voice note that is a response to the conversation we had earlier on with the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen.
Well, good morning, Thulasizwe. My name is Arthur. Amazing. I'm listening to your interview with John Steenhuisen, and there was a specific question you asked: where are they going to find the money to fund all this? He's not answered that question. He's fluffing around talking about ghost workers and fluffing around where. It's an easy question because he says that it's not hard to find 1.6%. Why can't he just say clearly where that 1.6% they believe is sitting? By ghost workers. He's really joking. I think he's joking.
All right, thank you for that. So that's part of the conversation that says there are some interventions that will perhaps yield results in the medium to long term. But right now, your needs are immediate. And I think I've asked that question of quite a few people that I've spoken to recently with various answers being advanced. Crispin in Durban, good morning. You want to talk to me about triple BEE?
Yeah. I heard a guy, I guess from the accent, he's a white guy, complaining yet again about BEE. And I thought, hold on. I'm not actually a great supporter of BEE and double B, triple E. But actually, if you want to object to these things, please take some responsibility and don't be so irresponsible as just to blame the ANC or anybody else for having policies to address inequality. We are the most unequal society in the world. That's a national disaster. What does this guy think he's going to do about it? Complain. Complain that somebody's trying to do something. Well, if you don't like BEE, come up with something better. But all the time, from the right wing and from Solidarity and all of these people, across a very wide range of reactionary opinion, there's this complaint, and absolutely no positive suggestion about what we've got to do with this appalling situation. It involves poverty, it involves lack of nutrition, it involves impaired life choices for the majority of people, perhaps. And the response is, anyone who tries to do something about this is wrong, and we must keep to what we've got.
All right.
It's
Crispin,
not acceptable.
Crispin, thank you for that. That's Crispin in Durban weighing in on that debate about the issues to do with triple BEE as well as other redress programs in this country. 8:30, and Musa on standby with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us in the headlines. The ANC has welcomed the tabling of the 2025-2026 budget by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana. The party says the budget speaks to issues related to social and economic growth. The Electoral Commission has set out a 6-month period for further inputs and consultations on the discussion documents on e-voting that will eventually be sent to Parliament. And the European Commission President Dr. Ursula von der Leyen says the geopolitical landscape is shifting and making strong partnerships more important than ever. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg N3, heavy this morning. Bedford View all the way up through to a point just after Modderfontein Road. It's a broken down vehicle there. There's also a crash on the Mike 1 South just after Glenhove Road. So from Santon, it's pretty heavy on your way down to Joburg. And motorists coming north from Parktown getting caught having a look at that. Truck crash recovery other way just south of Diepkloof Interchange. Traffic southbound into the obstruction and north having a look remains busy. Although it must be stressed it's well off the worst of the queues that we had earlier this morning. Still no joy. Durban to Pietermaritzburg, the truck that broke down before 6 a.m. In fact, I see it's just being cleared. So I was going to say it hasn't, but it's only just being cleared. Backlog to clear through from Shongweni going up to Cliffdale, and inevitably there'll probably be another one broken down in that queue somewhere along the line. It really is a problem, that Cliffdale these days. Cape Town, M5 North, the collision scene before the M2 is being cleared. It's left some busy conditions on the run north from the Kenilworth area. N1 pretty heavy today from Plattekloof through towards city centre territory, and the M3 backlogging from Wynberg Hill up through Rhodes Drive, passing UCT and all the way to Hospital Bend before you're out of that. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
I'll tell you what job I don't want, Zai. I don't want to be the person who has to choose who is the South African Rugby Player of the Year, because that's just an impossible task.
It's an impossible task.
All of these guys have just been showing up consistently. How do you choose even?
How do you have a proper champion? Because they're all champions in our eyes, right?
This is an impossible task.
I don't know who the judges were or are, but let me just tell you, they got a team that's already in a winning position. This is the SA Rugby Awards taking place in Cape Town tonight, where the best of the best will be honoured. We've got the Springboks, Peter Steph du Toit, Ibn Etzebeth, Cheslin, Colby, Ox and Chair, Damien Delander, all vying for the coveted SA Rugby Player of the Year award. And they had an outstanding 2024 where the Springboks won 11 out of 13 games. I don't know, can Peter Steph make it a double after being crowned Player of the Year last year? Or will Etzebeth, Colby or Oxen Chair steal the show? Rassie Erasmus, also a strong favourite for the Coach of the Year, despite controversially missing out on the World Rugby Award. Soccer now. TS Galaxy coach Adnan Beganovic says they have a manageable squad of 24 players, which gave him kind of a soft landing when he took over and made the environment conducive for the success they're now enjoying. The Rockets registered another crucial victory in their Betway Premiership this week, beating SuperSport United 3-1 to be tied on points with third place Stellenbosch FC, who have 2 games in hand. Beganovic, who replaced compatriot Siad Ramovic in November last year, is confident of consolidating their position on the log table.
You know, I'm so happy, first of all, to be here, to have opportunity to work with a beautiful squad. We have actually perfect squad. When we know when we work on the training session, everybody is on the training 100% and listen and work actually what I say. And then we have a small squad. We have 21 players and 3 keepers. And then I'm so proud because we use all our players. And then I believe in my players. First of all, that's it, secret. I believe in my players. And then when you believe in somebody, also players believe in me.
And that's the TS Galaxy coach Adnan Beganovic here on the morning brief. Let's go to tennis action. The number 2 seed Carlos Alcaraz only dropped 2 games. He cruised past Grigor Dimitrov 6-1, 6-1 in windy conditions to enter the quarterfinals at Indian Wells. The Spaniard will take on Francisco Cerundolo of Argentina in the last 8. Britain's Jack Draper stunning Taylor Fritz and the home crowd to reach the quarterfinals of Indian Wells as well. And in cycling, João Almeida outsprinted Jonas Vingegaard over the last few meters to take stage 4 of the Paris-Nice. The Portuguese Visma Lease bike rider won by a second at the finish, and it was in time of 3 hours, 37 minutes and a second. Matthias Skelmos was third, a further second back. Vingegaard now leads Matteo Jorgensen by 5 seconds in the general classification. And that's your sport. We'll have more with John Hediker, and that's around 12:30 for the morning brief. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. So the headline, naturally, headlines would have gone to focusing on the VAT increase. But there's a whole lot more that was part of Budget 2025. Unpack it for us, please.
All right, Thulasizwe, starting off with that VAT, the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, tabling a budget that proposes a 1 percentage point VAT hike over the next 2 years, despite initial plans for a 2% increase. Now, the revised budget aims to reduce additional government spending to 142 billion rands over 3 years, with a focus on frontline services like health and education. The budget, however, has been met with opposition from various parties, including the DA, which continues to reject that VAT increase. The ANC will need to garner support from other parties to pass the budget, as it no longer holds a majority in Parliament. Now, President Ramaphosa has defended the budget, stating that difficult decisions were made to balance it amid declining revenues and rising unemployment. The budget proposes to raise an additional 119 billion rand over the medium term, with 19.5 billion expected to come from the VAT increase. The opposition parties have criticized the budget, as mentioned. DA, the leader John Steenhuisen, stating that the party would not support the budget due to that increase. The MKP parliamentary leader John Hlophe also rejecting the budget, citing the VAT increase and calling for alternative measures like a wealth tax to support revenue. Now, the budget's fate hangs in the balance, with the ANC needing to secure support from other parties to pass it. The vote is expected to take place in May. So that's another day to look out for.
Sure, yeah. That's going to be quite interesting in Dowling. So a few weeks ago, when the minister and the minister in the presidency were caught in that hot mic moment. Part of what he was saying, Minister Godongwana, was how annoyed he was with the SARS commissioner. Of course, they're all downplaying it now, but at the time he said something to the effect that he doesn't know that in this cycle we had 3.5 billion rand and now that's gone. But it isn't gone, is it? The 3.5 billion rand. In fact, there's a whole lot more.
There's a whole lot more, and I think at this point the finance minister was like, me tata, basically.
Yeah, take what you want, tati mali yako.
So SARS has secured a boost with an additional 7.5 billion rand in funding allocated over the next 3 years. The increase is a major win for SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter, who has been advocating for more resources to enhance the tax authorities' capacity to collect outstanding taxes. Now, the funding will be used to target debt reduction and modernize SARS systems. A breakdown of the allocation shows that 500 million rands will be spent annually over the next 3 years on modernization, while R1 billion will be allocated in 2026-27 and 2027-28 for operationalization, and R4 billion will be allocated over the next 3 years to clamp down on debt owed to SARS and facilitate quicker turnaround times for declarations requiring refunds. Now, Kisweta has emphasized that the additional funding will be used to strengthen SARS's technology capability, leveraging data science, machine learning algorithms, and AI to respond to aggressive tax evasion schemes. With the backing of Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, Kisweta is now poised to deliver on his promise to enhance SARS's capacity and efficiency.
Lastly, Ndauling, what kind of a day can we expect in the markets today?
The trade will likely remain choppy to last, with local stocks poised to open mixed this morning. Tons of company news, Exxaro getting a new CEO and Standard Bank out with results, so lots to chew on. On the currency front, things look stable with not much change there. The rand still trading at 18.36 to the dollar this hour. Looking at the US, futures firmly in the red, a stark contrast to the steady recovery we saw overnight. Then over in Asia, stocks mostly flat, trading under the flat line. Traders on that front seem cautious when it comes to equities as recession fears and trade concerns continue to fuel a risk-off environment.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela there. She's kept you updated on business, the economy, and the markets over the last 3 hours here on the Morning Brief.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Who will rise in the Hollywood Bets Pro Series, where the top 8 women's cricket teams face off against each other to lift the inaugural Hollywood Bets Pro 50 and Pro 20 trophies? Local pride is at stake with the log table taking shape. Waza nawe. Get down to a stadium near you and show your support. Visit cricket.co.za for more information. Entrance to Hollywood Bets Pro Series matches is free. Unlock a world of benefits. Welcome to SABC's TV License Rewards program. Ready to make your viewing experience more rewarding? Say hello to perks that go beyond just watching TV. Join us today at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and instantly receive your first reward. But wait, there's more. You can get up to 500 Rand back. Become part of something bigger, a movement where watching TV isn't just a hobby. It's a catalyst for positive change. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and open the door to a world of benefits. Plus, every time you tune in, you're making a difference. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, I want to try and do justice to all of your WhatsApp voice notes. I see quite a lot of them have come through. So let me not waste any time. They've got largely to do with various themes that came out from Budget 2025.
Morning, Bert Sonia from a West Interior. Thanks for a great show. So maybe I'm missing something and maybe you can explain it to me. But we want to increase VAT so we can collect money because we're on a shortfall. But the very people we want to collect money for, we're taking money from because they pay VAT at the shops too. So why not just leave the VAT the way it is and let them keep their money? That's ridiculous. Anyway, have a fantastic morning.
Yeah, no, I take the point that you're making. And I'm just trying to scroll up on my notes here because I did note the items on which, that have been added to the 19 zero-rated products. But I can't find it now. It was quite interesting because a lot of people have been calling for more items to be added to cushion the impact on the poor. Here they are. So they include canned vegetables, dairy liquid blends. So as far as I understand, dairy liquid blends, those include, I'm sorry to mention the brand here, but that juice that's called Tropica, I think is a dairy liquid blend. So products of that kind. Organ meats from sheep, poultry, and other animals. Organ meats from sheep, poultry, and other animals. What is that? I don't know. Does anyone know? Is it gizzards, livers, and insides, as opposed to, if you know the call, at least from the poultry industry, was add poultry as a category to the zero-rated items. So the point you are making about taking from the poor in order to fund spending in support of the poor, to you doesn't make sense. I'm just adding that as color in as far as the VAT conversation is concerned. Let's hear what someone else has to say about education.
On the budget thing, how do you say you increase on education while you have took from it before? Like how make it make sense? You take 20 rand from education, now you bring 19 rand, then you say you increased. No, that's shitty. That's shitty. You do not increase. You literally just manipulated the system so that you can tell that you increased, and after you increase the VAT. I know, man. These people they are playing with us. Now they are comparing us to Nigeria. Nigeria is not us. We are us. Let us deal with our matters. We cannot concentrate on other people and talking about their tax. Let us grow our own and deal with our own.
I genuinely love engaging with you every morning. There's never a day when I just don't enjoy it. Those perspectives, some of them I would not necessarily have thought of. If you've been taking from that budget over a period of time, and then you infuse a certain amount, naturally that amount you infuse must exceed what you have taken over the years for it to at least catch up and keep up with where you should be. I find no flaw in that reasoning there from that caller. Tony, good morning to you. From Somerset West, you want to talk about the budget as well?
Yes, please. Good morning to your listeners and you. I just want to talk about this proposal of a wealth tax.
Yes.
How on earth do you have a wealth tax where you've got people who've got $20 million in their sofas, you've got people who own houses worth 300 million at least, that's in Kandla. You think those people are going to pay their taxes? How are you going to monitor that? It's just an absurd idea. And it's amazing who's proposing this scheme.
But Tony, isn't it that the South African Revenue Service would be able to tell you who the high net worth individuals are in this country, and therefore, in terms of this bracket system, that bracket of those high net worth individuals would then face a higher tax? I don't know. That's my simplistic understanding of it.
Well, I don't think that SARS are able to do that, as they've said, and that's why they need more money to catch all these people.
Yes.
The easiest way would be to go to car dealerships and see who's buying all the expensive cars. I don't know if they, doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, there you are. Tony, thank you for that. I believe SARS actually has systems that track, that kind of activity, economic activity by individuals, and they're able to detect that this person actually is a high net worth individual and should be contributing far much more. Tapelo in Binoni, good morning. You want to talk to me about Amapanyaza? What about Amapanyaza this morning?
Yes, I am concerned about Amapanyaza. I'm asking myself what...
Shame, man. So sorry, Tapelo, before you go ahead, for the benefit of our listeners who may live outside of Gauteng and don't know what we're talking about, Amapanyaza are these units that have been introduced by the Premier in Gauteng, the crime-fighting wardens. They wear green in terms of their uniform. Sorry for that interruption. Go ahead, please.
No problem. Now, the issue is, I don't know what value are they adding, because you look at the cars that they are driving. Mm-hmm. They are driving Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes, they are driving BMWs. And I'm asking myself, was there any budget for them to be employed? One. Two, their expensive resources that they are using. Where is the budget coming from? Look at the state of hospitals in Gauteng. They are in shambles, and yet we are having this unauthorized expenditure of buying expensive cars for wardens. You look at what impact are they having. They are just loitering in the streets. They are just washing cars at police stations. They are at the what is called the malls, sitting under the trees, eating the whole day. And ask yourself, is it really worth it investing such a lot of money on people that do not add any value in terms of crime fighting?
All right, Tapelo, thank you for raising that. I tell you what we will do. We will reach out to the Gauteng Premier as well as the MEC for Community Safety to try and have that as a conversation. That's what we tend to do. When themes like these come up, we then try and take them forward for the next day. So I think that's exactly what we should do. What value are the Amapanyaza adding in the fight against crime, but also the resources that are dedicated to them? And you're absolutely right. I've seen the vehicles that they drive. They are quite high end, and perhaps at the end it could be just a simple explanation of a sponsorship or something, I don't know, a partnership of some kind. But let's not assume. I think let's call in the authorities in Gauteng and hear from them. I'll take more of your calls in the next few minutes. Do stand by for me.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Oh, traffic light debacle in Joburg. Just seeing a tweet coming in from Malabongwe Drive from Ruth saying, the following traffic lights are not working at all of these junctions: Malabongwe, Levenote, at Capital, at Eskom, and at Ascot. So that's 4 big junctions. The only one that's working there in that north riding Kaya Sandler is Malabongwe and Witkopp, and the rest of them offline and have been for quite some time. Lots of traffic light issues around the four-ways and Lone Hill area as well. William Mandela at Leslie, Main and Sloane. So really big junctions causing delays, and it also extends up into Midrand where you're still queuing at this Olifantsfontein down towards the N1 highway without traffic lights. A New Road at the N1, those lights are down. New Road at 6 also down, so coming through from sort of Lever Road junction on New Road towards the highway, very heavy as well. A couple of congested routes, highway routes across Joburg. Crash on the Mike 1 south down by 11th Avenue. It's after Glenhove Road. Very heavy from Santon heading down into that scene, and northbound from Parktown heading up to Houghton, very heavy passing it as well. Also a stationary vehicle just after Modderfontein Road, so from Galooly up through Edenvale, still heavily backed as well. Let's get an update on that situation at Cliffdale. The earlier truck that broke down at Cliffdale has been cleared. So although it's slow from Keir Ridge going up towards Cliffdale, I think it's probably just the residual backlog that still needs to clear through there. Cape Town, M5 North is heavy this morning. Crash on the side of the highway before you get to the M2. The M5 is under pressure right back to sort of Wetton Road Bridge territory. Crash on the N2 inbound involving a bus at Bunga Avenue. Some delays coming through from the N7. And if you're on the N7 going north, a crash at Beaufort Circle, slowing traffic from Langa up into Epping. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The citizens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win.
And now it's with Haaland and on to Foden. Foden to finish the game. And he does.
However, the Seagulls want to triple their efforts to collect valuable points against reigning champs.
Lovely touch for Mitoma, and Mitoma could be away. Here it is. Mitoma one-on-one. Mitoma, delightful.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest, Manchester City FC versus Brighton and Hove Albion FC, on Saturday 15 March at 4:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let me take 2 quick voice notes and then go to the calls. This one is about the outcome in Lilongwe in Malawi around the extradition process of the Bushiris.
Morning, Mr. Simelane, your team and the listeners. With regard to Bushiri,
to Bushiri's. For me, my biggest interest is who assisted them to skip the country. Who assisted the Bushiris to skip the country? That's my biggest interest.
Yep. Absolutely spot on to ask that question. And also the implications for the bail system in this country, right? Because someone will say that in terms of being candidates suitable for release on bail, this is a classic case of people who were not suitable to be released on bail, because as soon as they got bail, they were out of this country. Glenn in Joburg, also on the Bushiris.
Tulas, good morning. I'm going to be quick.
Yeah.
I just hope that Shamila Patoe and her team, they've got a watertight case, because we don't want a media spectacle that the matter when it goes to court, it doesn't stand, the test of time.
Absolutely.
I hope all the resources they've spent will be worth it in the end.
Absolutely. And of course, you and I agree, Glenn, that a watertight case and them having their ducks in a row doesn't necessarily say that we want the outcome to be a conviction at all costs. If the Bushiris are not guilty, they should be found not guilty. But running away from trial is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fully concur.
All right, Glenn. Thank you for that. That's Glenn in Joburg there. Let me take a call from Thulani in KwaZulu-Natal. Thulani, good morning. You want to talk about the budget this morning?
Thank you very much, Thulasizwe. You see, I think the role of opposition in a democratic dispensation is very convenient and not principled. It shows chronic lack of the appreciation of the conditions within which the budget has been drawn. And they simply oppose for the sake of opposing. Of course, it is their role. I think generally we should have an appreciation of the fact that this budget has not been drafted or proposed in a static nirvana kind of a situation where all the factors are favorable towards South Africa, taking into account the stagnant economy, taking into account the resistance by the capital to adopt and accede to transformational agenda. That's why our economy is not growing. However, what I wanted to say is that opposition should contribute around how do we grow the cake, as opposed to them piling up the priorities which need to be attended to. We don't have yet a genuine engagement to say what are the constraints which curtail the minister from responding favorably and growing the economy. However, in conclusion, I think within the given circumstances, Godongwana has done his best.
All right.
Laying out the objectives, the principles, and the priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Thulani. That's Thulani in KwaZulu-Natal. Janusz in Cape Town, good morning to you. Also on the budget.
Good morning to us. We're always protecting, and why? We're always protecting rich people. In many countries, like for instance, European countries, Sweden, 55% on the taxes, personal taxes. Ours is 45%. Also, in many countries, Ivory Coast, African countries, 60% to charge the rich people. We've got only 45%. Talking about the VAT, why we've got only one bracket? In many countries, even China got 6, 9, 13% of charging VAT. We always got one bracket. Many countries, Russian got a 10, 20%. Indian got many steps. We got only one step. Who's suffering? Not the poor people, because poor people, they're just surviving. They add some little bit, but middle class suffering. Rich people always trying to hang on others.
Janusz, thank you for that. And that suggestion you are making about a differentiated approach to VAT, so that there are certain products that you charge higher and the common daily products you charge at a lower scale. That suggestion did come up, that luxury items should have higher level of VAT. It was one of the suggestions that I've heard in the conversations that we've been having recently. Zungu in Johannesburg, good morning. You want to talk about triple BEE?
Yes. Good morning, my brother.
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for a lovely show.
Thank you.
I love this country. Let me start by saying that But you'll recall that when we introduced all these policies, the aim was to eliminate poverty and make sure that we do away with anything called inequalities. But now we are having inequalities growing, Thulasizwe. Don't you think maybe it's about time that we commission some form of research and try to find out whether things are working or not for us? Because seemingly, if we keep doing things the same, we must not expect different results.
I can't disagree with what you are proposing. I can't disagree with it. A review would help us, right? I mean, there have been some comments, I've not read them directly, that are attributed to the World Bank around our policies, such as BBBEE. Perhaps a conversation is worthwhile. Where I differ with some of, fellow South Africans is where the principle behind it is rejected. The principle behind it can never be rejected simply because the act itself perhaps is faulty or it's being implemented incorrectly.
You are correct to say that, but we also need to look at the amount of time where these policies. That's why we really need to be honest with ourselves as a country and check whether this is working for us. Because the reality is that our economy keeps dying, is not growing. We are not doing well when it comes to production and manufacturing, and our educational system is also not doing well.
All right, Zungu, I've got to go. Yeah, that's Zungu there. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening. The Talking Point with Katie Mutlatlana up next here on SAFM after the news.
In our top stories, ANC reaction to the budget speech and Midrand water supply to be boosted. Good morning. The ANC has welcomed the tabling of the 2025-2026 budget by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana. The party says the budget speaks to issues related to social and economic growth. ANC National Chairperson and Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Gwede Mantashe.
The budget talks to the issues of our people. I read a party that says this budget is not pro-growth. And I asked a simple question. How can you spend money on education, health, infrastructure, social grants and say it's against growth?
Meanwhile, the DA says it does not support the budget and the proposed VAT increase. The DA leader, John Steenhuisen, says the budget reflects the political dynamics of the GNU.
It was clearly, obviously, a bridge too far for the ANC, and that is why we have not been able to reach a compromise on the budget. However, our door remains open. I'm happy to keep the conversation going, but there has to be a realization that this is a coalition. It's not my way or the highway. It requires compromise on all sides.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has given assurance that recommendations of the Health Ombud over the Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg will be considered. The Health Ombud highlighted lack of security, non-payment of food service providers, dirty linen piling up in the corridors, decaying infrastructure and poor governance and leadership as some of the challenges at the hospital. Motsoaledi believes what happens at Helen Joseph Hospital could be signs of similar challenges experienced at other hospitals in the country.
But I also said it is definitely not only Helen Joseph. So this month we are going to have a National Health Council where I'm going to unpack, because I've been singing a song about this infrastructure. The reason that the president mentioned infrastructure during the State of the Nation address was not because of Helen Joseph, the results were not yet out. It's because we told him so that we have got a big problem of infrastructure and HR in the healthcare system because of the budget cuts that happened over the years.
The Electoral Commission has set out a 6-month period for further inputs and consultations on the discussion documents on e-voting that will eventually be sent to Parliament. The public is urged to make their contributions on the IEC's website. The IEC concluded a 3-day conference yesterday that discussed the feasibility, sustainability and policy implications of electronic voting. The IEC's Deputy CEO, Masiho Shiburi,